Good evening, everybody. This is the July 19th Board of Trustees for the Village of Romeo meeting. Thank you for joining us. I call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please call the roll, Clerk Trapp.
Yeah, so did I.
Romeo?
Here?
Edwards? Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Wozniacki?
Here.
President Malzahn?
Here.
We have 6 present.
Okay. Before we begin, we need to add the agenda approval under the roll call. And so at this time, I'm looking for an approval of the agenda. I do need to table or delete wage and compensation study. Mr. Vitrino is unable to join us this evening, and the staff has expressed an interest in attending the meeting, so I'd like to table that until the August meeting. And I also need to add the parade approvals under new business as item G.
Could we move the office pub up to the top so they don't have to sit around?
We can put them, let's put them as B.
Okay.
Under the tabled wage and compensation study.
Sounds good.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with those changes.
okay.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The consent agenda is item number 3. I'd like to just pull out the vendor activity and the general distribution. I just want to explain the 2 reports that are at your table. So if we could remove those from the consent agenda, then we would just have the 3 meeting minutes. You got the meeting minutes from June 21st, you got the closed session from June 21st, and then the special meeting for June 28th.
Could we pull out the 28th?
Anything else?
I haven't read this one
I'll
yet.
make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of June 28th.
Okay.
Second.
I'll support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Do you want to go with the meeting minutes from the June 28th? Justin, you have some corrections?
Yeah, I just, under the item number 4, where we had the presenters, I think, that came in, I didn't see, I know Jamie was here. I don't know if we just probably put him on there, because I know he talked, didn't he?
Okay.
Yeah, under item 4, where we had the presenters come in and talk, I believe Jamie was here.
Jamie Lucero.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yep, and, yeah, we just should add him in there as one of the presenters.
Any other corrections?
That was it.
Way to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the June 28th with that addition under number 4.
Motion by Hart, support by Bartholomew. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, and then you have at your place table 2 reports for the vendor activity report and the general distribution report, the checkers report. The one that's in your packets, Rebecca was on vacation last week, and so Tim came in and did payables, and the report that's in your packet included extra items from the June meeting. The date wasn't set right. So the items that you have before you on your table are included in the reports that were in your packet, but the totals aren't the same if you're just looking at the bottom line total, because it included some items that were already approved. So I just wanted to explain that the vendor activity report totals $57,272.05, and the GL distribution was $53,508.02. We had a motion to approve those bills.
Make a motion to approve those bills.
Moved So motion by Bartholomew,
Support.
support by Hart. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Bartholomew.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Fowler.
No.
Parker.
No.
Wozniacki.
Yes.
President Malzahn.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-2.
Okay, we have no special presentations this evening. We have no correspondence. Anybody from the audience that wants to offer public comment this time? Ms. Heidebrech?
Ruth Heidebrach, 354 Salem Drive South, Romeo, Michigan. I watched our meeting on the 21st, and I have a few questions pertaining to the issue of the treasurer. And I noticed she's not here today, so I don't know if we can get answers to that or not, but...
She actually is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you sitting there. Well, I asked you. I watched it several times, and on minute mark 58:30, the treasurer gets up, and the subject was whether or not she went to this, she was at home, and she was on a webinar. And I have 2 points of concern here. If she is an elected official, and we, the residents, have voted her into that position, did she know she had a medical issue before we elected her? And the other concern I have is, suppose, with the detail of the meeting, it starts off in April the 19th. And then you have the meeting, and then Wednesday, supposedly, that was the situation with the ransomware, where the money had to be transferred immediately. And that amount of stress in doing that threw her into a freezing physically. But that was on the 19th. This webinar wasn't until the 26th to the 29th. I guess I want to know if that stressful situation, and I'm empathetic to any issue, medical issue, but we haven't really heard or seen what this medical issue is. But how did, if she was frozen in stress from the 19th and the 26th and the 29th was a home webinar, that you're at home, but you're too frozen in stress to be able to do that webinar? Why? Were you frozen in that medical condition from the 19th to the 26th? And if so, is this going to affect you every time we have a stressful situation? Now, the ransom situation was very stressful, and I completely understand that. My second question is, in Mark, I think 1 hour 30, she states that she was still at home doing her job, logging into the bank. Now, we've got a ransom situation in the township. I'd also like to know, do we have a treasurer that's working from home without a secure Wi-Fi during that time? If that's true, we need to look into that, because nobody should be working and logging into the bank, especially with those kind of situations, without a secure Wi-Fi. And I think we should all be, as residents and as trustees, concerned about that. So those were my 2 questions regarding that, because I think it's a very important issue, especially if we're talking to an elected official. I also understand that our elected officials do not answer to you or to the board, but I'm real concerned about our treasurer not reporting that she had a medical condition, that she was frozen with fear and stress, but that she called residents and told them about that. When it was pretty obvious to all of us that were watching the meetings that you guys were trying to keep it as quiet as possible until you found out the real details. So I'd just like to know those questions, please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is there any other public comment at this time? All right. Hearing none, let's move on to our officer reports. First up, I have my president's report for tonight. Just updating, we had a site meeting on July 8th. In attendance were DPW Supervisor Tim Metz, DDA Chair Kelly Stevens, our row engineering pedestrian crosswalk coordinator Paul O'Mara, and myself. We discussed the upcoming crosswalk project. The two most challenging intersections will be at St. Clair and Rawls, and at Main and Newberry due to some alignment and tree issues. So collaboratively, we're working to develop plans for these specific areas. It may require a tree removal at Rawls and a little more lengthy work at the corner where the Masonic Temple is, just because the grade and the brick pavers are going to create an issue with the ADA compliance. But we're working to develop a plan for a successful outcome. I also approved the vendor for the soil boring work, and they should be completing that testing in the next few weeks. So we're moving forward with those plans to get those crosswalks put in. The final full report on the ransomware attack is being completed now by our cyber forensic team. Should be available in the next couple of weeks. I can confirm and share with you today that the results verify there was not a data breach of any sensitive or personal information from either the staff or any residents during the encryption process. The village has fully recovered the encrypted data and is back to normal operations with our BSNA software. Unfortunately, we are not able to recover the loss of some historical utility data and some of the archived reports that the DPW held on their computer on site. I am working with the DPW staff to recreate those items as they are needed. As COVID restrictions ease and we return to gathering in public, back to pre-COVID, right? I wanted to highlight a few of the upcoming events. So please, mark your calendars for the following happenings. The Parks and Rec Sunday concerts in the village, which are on Sundays from 5:30 to 7, have 3 more dates this summer. So please plan to grab your bag chairs and come to the park and join us on July 26th, August 1st, and August 15th. Again, that's from 5:30 to 7. Peach Fest 2021 is on. Several groups are working hard and making plans to bring most, but not all, of your favorite Peach Fest traditions back. A few notable items that I'd like to mention. The 5 and 10K Fun Run will take place on Thursday, September 2nd at 6:30. Parks and Rec and their sponsors are putting on a fireworks show for us on Friday, September 3rd at the Crystal Diamonds Field on 33 Mile Road. That's at dusk. Parks and Rec is also holding its annual Kids Fest Day in the Village Park on Saturday, September 4th from 8:30 to 4. And I hear Rachel Mack is singing, so please join us for that. Watch their website, which is rwbparks.org, for more details. The Chamber of Commerce and Kelly Stevens is working hard to coordinate our Children's Parade on Sunday, September 5th at 11 a.m. That route will be from Hollister, traveling south to Washington Street. Please note, fortunately, there will not be a hometown floral parade this year. But Grace Vinay and the Parks and Rec staff is already working hard to make the 2022 floral parade bigger and better than ever. The Lions are coordinating their classic car parade, which is scheduled for Sunday, September 5th at 7 p.m. That route is from Tractor Supply on Van Dyke through the village up to 34 Mile Road. The Lions will also host their Midway and their Carnival, food vendors, beer tents, and live entertainment. Schedules vary from September 2nd through the 6th. So please visit the Lions website, which is discoveringromeo.org, for more details. And be sure to watch for the next issue of the Mitt TV magazine, due out in mid-August, that will have the complete Peach Fest schedules. The 2021 Romeo Homecoming Parade is scheduled for Wednesday, October 13th at 6 p.m. The parade route is still being finalized, but planning as of now is from Washington Street, north to Newberry, and into the Village Park for our rally. Trick-or-treating in the Central Business District is on for Saturday, October 30th, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sirens will sound. We still plan to close Main Street from Newberry down to Washington for our visitors' safety. And there will be a party in the park hosted by the Parks and Rec following trick-or-treating. And lastly, the Romeo Village Tree Lighting and Santa Parade will be held on Thursday, December 2nd, beginning at 7 p.m. That route and event are still in planning stages, so please stay tuned to the Parks and Rec website for more details. Hope you all join us. Thank you. Our clerk's report.
As we discussed last year, the cemetery has ordered and put up new street signs, so we have added more, so navigation in the cemetery can be a little bit more easy. And I'd like to thank DPW for helping out with that, taking care of that project. And the cemetery board is having a meeting this Thursday morning. That's all I have.
Treasurer Maddox, did you have a report for this evening?
Yes. Hello. The tax bills were mailed out and we've been receiving payments since July 1st. And anyone that has escrow, you can look at the top right-hand corner, and where it says mortgage code, it'll have a company like CoreLogic or Loretta or Wells Fargo or a smaller independent mortgage company. Just rest assured that as long as you have escrow, they wire transfer me the funds the first week of September, and all those payments are applied upon receipt of the wire transfer. If you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call. We'd love for you to come on in and make your payments online. I know it's been a long time. I haven't seen you in a year or so. We've been taking payments online through the website. Walk in. We have the drop box, and if you do mail your payments, just be mindful that there is a delay in the mailing. And if you need a receipt, just let me know, give me a call, or send it in with your payment. Does any of the board members have any questions? Okay, well that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee reports. Start on this side of the room this time. Nathan, any updates on sidewalks?
Yes,
or anything else?
So good news is Rapid Concrete has finished Bailey.
Okay.
They had a lot of challenges with the weather, of course, and but any nice day they were able to get out there and take advantage. I wanted to mention one other thing, and that is I noticed wherever he works in the neighborhood, because of all the residents are having additional work done, like new approaches, sidewalks from the sidewalk to their house, everything looks nice. You know, everything's looking good. People are putting in brand new driveways when it was dirt before or just something really bad. So that's a good thing. Next, we'd like to get up to the high school or the funeral home to connect from there. And we've contacted the church. We're trying to work out some communication issues. You know, just there's no problems. We just need to wait for their board to meet. And but they're on board with it, from what I can tell. So there's more to come on that.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for taking care of that. Trustee Poznanski?
Just a couple things. I was able to make the Parks and Rec meeting that was held here at our Romeo Parks and Rec building. I guess I can talk more about that later when we talk about Parks and Rec, but some of it sad and some of it encouraging, but we can talk about that later. And then just wanted to mention that the DDA, maybe you've noticed huge paintings downtown on the sides of buildings, such as our Village Hall or in the Village Park or down maybe one of the trails. DIA has their Inside Out project right now here in the Village of Romeo throughout the summer. So get on your bike, take a walk, check them all out. It's really great.
The village offices, by the way, is trying to obtain some maps of each one of those installations. So hopefully we'll have those available soon. So if people are going to do a little bike tour, but hopefully we can give them some directions of exactly where they're located at, so follow up on that. Trustee Hart?
At this point?
Okay, Trustee Parker?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Fowler? Okay, excellent. The ex officio planning commission, I know that you weren't at the meeting, but do you have anything else to follow up on?
Just that the Dr. Dolan thing was approved with conditions to make it ADA compliance regarding the sidewalk. Jim gave me a call today and told me that's basically what the board had approved for him, so.
Yeah, for his site plan approval, which the additions, the renovations to that building will look phenomenal when he gets done. He's next to Culligan Water, if no one's familiar with where his site is. So he's revamping that whole sort of corner. So look for that. That's exciting improvements in our town. Okay, committee reports. Nathan just touched on the sidewalk committee. Nothing further, correct? Anything from the rental inspection? I didn't know at any meetings. I talked to Mr. Bomarito. Okay.
Coordinating everyone
Yeah.
right now is kind of difficult.
Same thing with the Bruce sewer capacity. We haven't had any additional meetings because Mike McDonald has been on vacation, so.
Everybody's taking advantage of getting out.
For sure, yeah. Okay, we have no unfinished business, so we can move on to new business. Trustee Parker requested this agenda item be placed on, so.
Yeah, so after the last meeting, I had several residents and business owners approach me about the park improvements, and it raised some questions. I requested a lot of stuff from you guys to be put in the packet, and it didn't end up getting in there. A lot of people are wondering, like we talked, that you were unaware of where the funds were and where they were being used for, and if there was any approval for any of that. And I thought I gave you the opportunity to provide all that, and you didn't, but you gave us the letter to Ford, which I think is great. You did a good job of facilitating getting the money, but then just our understanding from what we've got, it's just been passed along somewhere else, and we have no idea where that is, if it's an official non-profit, as you said it had to go to. So that's what we're kind of looking for, questions to be answered, and I'm just looking at the request again, nothing was included. So
let me clarify that. Justin did give me a list of documentation. He wanted some ordinances. He wanted some information on the Mitt TV and their charitable arm. And I instructed Justin Parker where he could find those ordinances. He does have a copy of the Black Ordinance Book. They are all on Muni Code. And I asked him if he wanted to send them to me, one copy, then we could certainly make copies for board packets. I also told him that we didn't have, the village doesn't host any public documents for any of the Mitt TV information, and that if he wanted that he could certainly request that of the Mitt TV. I want to be certain that you understand exactly what my role is, because there seems to be a little bit of
yeah, we're just looking for
misunderstanding.
transparency. We're just trying to understand,
Sure.
because when we asked last time, you were kind of like, I don't know where anything's at. And that's
No,
where it
I
kind of
believe I
left.
told you exactly where it was, that it was in an escrow account, that the invoice came from the Mitt TV through Ford's request. They needed an invoice from a 501c3 who doesn't have a cap on the amount of money that they can collect. So that's why it's at the Mitt TV.
So it's through the foundation, right?
Well, I believe there's a gentleman here that can address that information in just one second. But regarding your request, I just want to be clear that I don't work for you, for this board, right? Catherine doesn't work for this board. Catherine is the recording secretary for the village, and it's her duty to keep the minutes, right? I am the chief executive officer of the village, right? If you want to request an agenda item, you certainly can. We will facilitate that to our every ability. But if there is some documentation that you would wish to go along with that, that is your responsibility to get it and send it in to us.
I can respect that, but maybe more than the day before, saying, hey, maybe you should give me this information.
I believe I followed up with that, excuse me.
The day before the deadline.
No, it wasn't the day before the deadline. When I had
The
a
email was the day
conversation
before
with
the
you,
deadline.
I had a conversation with you, don't talk over me, please, regarding your trustee salary item. And I informed you at that same time on the phone conversation why I would supply the documentation for that agenda item, that it was your responsibility, but I had already planned to put that on the agenda. Therefore, I would supply it at that time. So you knew almost a month ago of that positioning.
That was for the trustee who said you would put the ordinances in there. And I mean, that's just one small thing that was requested, was the ordinances that talked about the process for improvements to village assets. That's the ordinance that was asked for. And the other stuff was communication with
Right.
Ford, with Mitt, this and that. So you said you had no public record of any communication with the Mitt or its charitable arm or anyone associated, which is also then alarming, right? Would you just say, hey, send the money here? Did you not check to see if it's an official nonprofit?
Yeah, we have a gentleman here who can address your concern. Right now, I'm addressing to you, when you request, or any of these board members request agenda items, per our rules of procedure, you have until Tuesday before a scheduled meeting to make the request, when we will accommodate it and put that on the agenda. You have until Wednesday before a meeting to supply us with the documentation. And as far as your statement about me going out on my own or doing things without approval, I just want to read this from the general village law so that you have a clear understanding of exactly what my job is and what my responsibility is. The president of the village, and this is from the General Village Law Act, Act 3 of 1895, it's section 64.1. The president as the chief executive officer, duties generally. The president is the chief executive officer of the village. He or she shall preside at the council meetings. The president is a voting member of the council. The president shall give the council information concerning the affairs of the village and recommend measures which he or she considers expedient. Unless otherwise provided in an ordinance adopted under Section 8 of Chapter 5, the president shall exercise supervision over the affairs of the village and over public property belonging to the village. The president shall see that the laws relating to the village and the ordinances and regulations of the council are enforced. Your
Provide information.
statement of me seeking money from Ford without your knowledge is
I
not
don't think that's what's in
required.
question. I actually just said, I think
No,
that this
that-
was great that you did that. The process that's happening without any board approval, any of the board approval, no planning.
What I'm suggesting to you
DDA,
under that
anyone
is that
has
you
any-
I don't need to seek your approval to do that, to find opportunities to improve assets to this village. And that's what I want to be clear right now. It doesn't say that I will ask for permission. It says that I will give you information. If you want somebody who asks for permission, who asks for directions, then that's a village manager. And you certainly have the ability, this council does, to put that position into place.
So you're telling that you can move forward, altering the park, changing the name, doing what you want without any board approval?
There is no ordinance that states exactly that. There are some processes in place which we fully intend to follow.
But just because there's an absence of an ordinance, does that give you the right, therefore, to go forward and do whatever you want, carte blanche?
It is my duty as Chief Executive Officer of the village to oversee the assets of this community.
Yes, overseeing is completely different than making these
Yes.
hard line
Actual,
decisions.
yeah, right, mhm.
And like you just said, provide information. The information I requested you wouldn't give me.
I
And
said
in other
that- no,
emails,
I
you clearly said
replied
that
and
you
I
wouldn't give
said
me any
that-
more information outside a board meeting, because I can't have it both ways.
Nathan, Justin, what did you ask for?
What's that?
What did you ask for?
I asked for communications with the Mitt or the charitable arm from, communications about the project with Ford, with the Mitt,
Well, the Mitt has a phone number. I mean,
its
you can always
charitable
reach out
arm
to them.
regarding the project funds. Yeah, but we contract with the Mitt. They're
For video
contract.
services.
That's handled through the.
Right,
through
that's
the-
for
the
video
office.
services?
That's not for a single trustee to go and facilitate.
I would
And was
think,
requested on July 1st, and there was no response until I asked if it was received, and then I got a response on the 13th, the day before stuff was due, saying, oh, you're going to have to go get all this. So just leave you in the dark?
it sounds like, I've been on the board for a while, this is like being an oversight committee, that you're looking to see if there's something that is misrepresented. And for a trustee to ask an office to give me, I want to see this, this, and this, is nothing. I guess if the board had a majority of us and we felt there was something wrong and the board made a resolution that we wanted to have that information, I think that would be more compelling. But for any one trustee to say, I don't like this, I don't like it went to the Mitt TV, I want to see all this stuff.
And I don't think it's anyone's questioning that it went to the Mitt, and I don't think anyone's questioning the park approval like was noted on some websites that trustees are trying to halt it. I don't think anyone's trying to stop improvements. It's just, let's follow a process, let's be transparent, right? I think that's what you ran on, was being transparent and open, not blindsiding everyone at a meeting that, oh, we got this big project happening.
There is no project happening. I've been sitting here right along with you. There was money given to us by a charitable to a charity, and they're creating a Friends of the Park to do improvements. Now, if they're going to be breaking ground, I think this board is going to see plans, and we'll have an input, because now they're going to apply the money to our asset. But,
that'd be great. So
but
let's be transparent and let's present that, because I don't think a lot of the residents and some of this board understood that there's going to be that process. It just sounded like it was snowballing, and this is just happening. That's why I asked. That's why I asked for the information, gave you every opportunity to be like, okay, here's everything we've got, and we could have all read through it and be like, this sounds great, awesome, but yet you neglected to give it to me or held it back for whatever purpose that is.
I didn't hold it back. I told you that we don't have any public records for the information that you're seeking. We did invite a gentleman here this evening, and I'll invite you up to come to the podium, and perhaps you can answer some of Mr. Parker's questions.
Well, I hope so.
Yes. So,
I'm Bob Boziger. I am an attorney. I have done nonprofit work for 30 years. I currently do represent the Mitt TV, so I'm very intimately involved with their information and a little bit on this transaction, because I've just been brought to the table to be engaged to form the official nonprofit organization that will move forward in determining what to do with these funds and the park. You can rest assured that the money is at the Mitt in a segregated fund. It was at the request of Ford Motor Company because they needed a nonprofit ID in order to get the tax deduction and write the check. It was them pushing that issue. Was I thrilled about it? No, but it's the way you get funds from large corporations. Yeah. I have the same experience with a nonprofit that was called the Fund for Detroit's Future under Dennis Archer's administration, where I formed this entity to gather funds from the general business community and individuals to pay for things in the city of Detroit back in the day that just wasn't in the budget for the city. And it ended up being safety streetlights and landscape and things that the city just was busy trying to pay salaries. And so we raised millions of dollars and put those funds into place at the direction of the city. Everything went back to the city to say, what do you think about decorative lighting down Woodward Avenue down by the theater district? And it's nice for me to walk downtown and see that I was actually a part of some of that. That fund ran its course and has been dismantled, but I see this as the same project. So we are in the process of formalizing the name, getting the documentation at the state of Michigan, and then I will be moving forward in creating the nonprofit with the Internal Revenue Service, which is a long, lengthy process. But what that allows the new nonprofit to do is to go out in the community, ask your residents, ask your businesses, would you like to contribute on a tax-deductible basis for these specific projects? Currently, we're thinking about the Village of Romeo Parks with an S on it to see if we can do more, if we can raise enough money to benefit a larger community. The only thing that I'm aware of as far as moving forward a little bit is a general sort of questionnaire that went out to residents. What would you like to see in a park? Would you like more playground equipment? Would you like an amphitheater? What is it that you want to see? And that's just in the infant stages of determining interest as to what should be done. Any questions other than that?
So you do represent a 501c3?
I represent probably 45 of them.
Where the Ford money?
No, I don't represent the Ford money one. Yes, it went to the Mitt TV, which you're familiar with. Yes, that is a 501c3 that I formed a couple of years ago, yes.
So did you say a third of that board is low income, which is 501c3, correct?
No, that's not true. The 501c3 just has to have 3 directors, a nonprofit organization.
So none of the board member has to be made up of the low income?
No, not at all.
I thought you just said that you're still creating the fund, so is this a different?
No,
how does that work?
The new fund for the parks is in process, yes.
Gotcha, okay.
So we don't have a formal entity yet, we don't have a federal ID number yet, and we don't have the application completed to go to the Internal Revenue Service. But as soon as the entity is created and we have a federal ID number, we can open a bank account and move the money from the MIT over to where it's supposed to be. But we have to get that in process first. And that should be shortly. I want to say, hopefully within the week.
So you do have the 501c3 designation, but you don't have the 30-year?
No. The designation may take 18 months, but you look backwards in time. You go from the date you sent your information into the IRS, and in general, it's 12 months to 18 months. Right now, the IRS is so behind. I don't know if anybody's still waiting for a tax refund, but it's been a ridiculous wait for the IRS. Lots of clients that I have that we filed in February, they still don't have any refunds from the IRS. So it could be the full 18-month waiting period. But that doesn't mean you can't go out and raise funds, because you are effective from the date you file with the IRS as long as you get approved. And that's how most nonprofits operate.
And are you guys willing to be transparent with the village?
We have
the
to.
funds coming in?
We have to be.
Going out?
Nonprofits are transparent. The 990s are filed with the IRS. You can see what we file at any time. If it's not from us, you can get it from the IRS.
So it's pretty easy to get a hold of someone and track everything.
The IRS, it's going to take a little time. You can put in a request.
If
But
we just
yes.
picked up the phone, it said it would be easy to pick up the phone and call you guys. We'll be able to get that information as needed.
As it becomes available, yes. As we create it, exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's a fire request. And I just want to, if you could just clarify this point, because it was brought up at the last meeting about other 501c3s that are in this community, and why did we pick the MIT versus, say, the Lions. So the Lions have facilitated money from Ford to the police department. Again, they need a charitable 501c3 to which invoice. So the Lions invoice Ford, Ford sends them the money. The police department gathered the bulletproof vest or whatever projects Dan had earmarked for, and Chief Dan, sent the invoice to the Lions, and then we got reimbursed. But there is a cap on certain 501c charitable organizations of how much money they can accept on the short version.
Outside of
Right.
their nonprofit status.
Yes.
And what they're approved for, they can only collect so much money. Otherwise, if you collect too much that's not in accordance with your nonprofit status filing, you could lose your nonprofit status for doing something that's not nonprofit related. You may or may not know how much the MIT does as far as placing money into other charitable organizations through its entity. They donate a lot of money back into the community for many different functions and sponsor different events. So they have had a history of larger dollar amounts going into the MIT and then going out to other organizations like this. We looked into using an existing nonprofit in the area to do this project. The problem is when you file for a specific thing to get your nonprofit status, like a friend of a library or the friend of a park. And if you're outside of what you filed for and you receive from the IRS the approval to be a nonprofit, you put at risk all the donations that you've received, and those people counting on those donations being tax deductible. You could actually blow up 1 million people's 1040s and 1120s, the corporate tax returns, by losing that nonprofit status. So we have to be very focused on what this entity does and what it's for. But we're trying to make it broad enough to be the parks and not just one park in the future. If we raise enough money, like if we raise a few $1 million like we did in Detroit, we could probably do a lot of good for the community.
Appreciate you.
Does that help?
Information. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I can leave my business information with maybe the clerk and have it then.
That would be great.
Very
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect.
I just want to cover a few more things that Bob didn't get a chance to, and other things that have come up in that last meeting. There's a lot of work that has to be done to formulate this type of thing. We're hoping that this project is going to be a year long, maybe 18 months. But the process of formulating the committee, which we have 9 extraordinary people on this committee, well, they have to meet, we have to make plans, we have to fill out, a long form, which is $10,000, which I donated to have that seed money, and so we could get to that point. Bob has done this a couple times for me, and it can be 18 months before the form is filled out and we actually get that 501c3 in order to get the large grants that are way over $70,000. If it was just a $70,000 or $200,000, the MIT could do that. But that would, if it was more, then it would put us over our limit from what we get from you guys and from Bruce. So it takes time, and I see that, you know, the perception is, wow, this just popped up. But we've been talking about improving the village park for a very long time. And throughout the community, I've spoken to businesses, I've spoken to residents that want to get involved in this. So when Christine, the president, got the opportunity for Ford to say, well, yeah, we would help you, then we knew we had at least the seed money to go forward. That's when the MIT also offered to match Ford's first deposit, which was $40,000. So, not that it's been communicated to the public the proper way, but the MIT has a lot of skin in this game too. So, we don't have any reason to not treat this with the utmost respect, which takes time and money. Right now, we have the committee formulated. Now we have the nonprofit, the Friends of the Park, formulated. And now we will now start to choose directors for the nonprofit. So we have the officers and everything, the information that the lawyers need to formulate that kind of organization. It's only a year. I wish we could just ask everybody for money and do it. But we have to protect our donors, and we have to protect our park. We want to have not only grants, but public promises. And that's what makes it a public project. It's the village park. So we're gonna talk to you guys as often as we can, because there's some exciting things that we're gonna be doing. We're gonna have a ton of events to educate. We just did a survey, and we got a tremendous amount of feedback. We have 78% of that whole that wants that park restored. And there's a lot of things that they want. They want parking.
When did that go out? 'Cause
That went out 30-mile radius. It went out July 1st, and it's still running.
Where can that be found?
On social media, on Facebook.
Oh, it's on Facebook.
You can find it on the tree board page. You can find it on the Friends of the Park page and the MIT page. And it went to all of the local pages. So fill it out, because we're getting lots of service.
In all honesty, I had a lot of people with a lot of feedback about the project and their concern over like amphitheaters and all this additional stuff, and parking is already at a minimum down there, and what's that going to do to the businesses? And
that was the third highest concern, which
so
is, hey, we need some more parking. But now that we have the committee and all that, we have 3 different companies that have agreed to do conceptual drawings, and a lot of those conceptual drawings offer more parking. But that would have to be in another project where we have to deal with planning commission and all of that to change maybe the one-way, and you know, and that is in all of the drawings, the conceptual drawings. What you'll start to see now is we have the conceptual drawings. We have 3. We're going to get 3 estimates from everybody. They are now working on the cost estimates, so we can compare those. They're building boards, and we're going to have them on easels. We're going to have them on easels as soon as we have them for the music in the park. We're going to have a student film festival, which every opportunity we have, we're going to have an information board out there. We're going to have free popcorn with information stapled on the popcorn. So we need our community to tell us what they want now that we've got this formulated. But this all takes time. And, you know, I apologize if it seems like we're rushing, but...
I don't want to say rushing, it just seemed like And like I said, people presented to me that it was just, all of a sudden, we got this project going on, and no one knew anything about it prior to the meeting that it was brought up. So that was the big concern.
Sure, communication is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Is important.
Definitely.
But as I stated before in our first meeting, as far as placing this money in escrow, when we get the nonprofit that is specific to the parks, that money will be transferred there along with our donation and every other donation that we can get from that on.
Right.
Ruth,
Yes.
I think you said it clearly, but to clarify, the Mitt TV has donated matching the first $40,000 that Ford gave with $40,000
Correct.
from the Mitt.
Correct?
Thank you.
Yes.
And Ford Motor Company has committed an additional 30.
Right.
Yeah.
But Mitt
And
TV
they had to
has
get it off their
contributed
books for the
40,000.
20. Right.
Ruth?
Any other questions?
No, thank you very much for all you do for this town.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Any further discussion on the park?
No.
All right.
I have another appointment, so if I could, any other questions?
Thank you. I appreciate your expertise on this matter, so we appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. We agreed to move up to item B, the office pub and cookeries request. Nicole?
Hello. Nicole Cheka from the Office Pub and Cookery, and this is Mike Behan. He's the VP of Operations of CBJ Sizzle, who has recently purchased the Office Pub. And we are coming before you today to ask for permission for the trailer for Peach Festival again, now that we know it's officially happening this year.
I'd like to make the motion that we move forward with approval of this.
Oh, battle over support. That was hard, I believe. Got the first word in.
Doesn't matter.
We have a motion by Bartholomew, support by Hart. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Nikki.
you.
You're welcome. Okay, next up, wait, let me just make a note here, that was 7-0. The trustee salary, again, trustee Parker requested that this agenda item be placed on tonight's agenda, so.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of information. Thank you on this one. So the main concern with this was when the last couple checks rolled out, I noticed that there wasn't pay in there for the meetings. In a brief conversation with you, Christine, and I think it was Zach, they said, oh, well, we've already been paid for the 16 meetings, which led me back to the ordinance, which, I mean, I can read, it says, each trustee on the Board of Trustees shall be paid a salary equal to the sum of $125 per month, plus $75 for each meeting actually attended by the trustee, up to a maximum of 16 per year during the term of his or her office. So I think, and I think you agreed when we talked, Christine, was where the problem happened is that, yes, there was 16 paid in the fiscal year, but the way the ordinance is written, it says per trustee or each trustee during the term of his or her office, which I guess anytime there's an election, then that creates a, if you want to say, gray area. So like this time, we all have new terms, me, Megan, and trustee Bartholomew. So that would be a new term for the trustee. So I'm not saying I need the money, the $75 is not nothing, but it's more so just the wording of the ordinance, if we need to correct that or fix it from the way it should be, or the way it is. Does that make sense? I know you had some input on that when we talked.
Well, and it made sense when Justin and I did have a phone conversation about that. Catherine typically would take attendance. She has attendance sheets for the meetings and then submits that to Rebecca. And there was some gray area when we had a succession, like there was like 3 or 4 special meetings all right in a row. In fact, one special meeting took place in advance of a regular meeting, so do we pay that one or not pay that one? I spoke to Rebecca, who is our only HR payroll person, and I said, look, wouldn't it be easier if we just said the trustees get paid their $125 a month and $75 a meeting if you show up? Period. Does it have to be limited and capped at 16? Some years we don't have 16, right? Some years we might have more than 16. but the accounting of it and who attended and who didn't attend, because if myself didn't attend one meeting, then she's got to keep track of how many did I get paid for in my term. It would just simply be the flat 125 and then 75 per meeting when they're called. Justin's concern, and rightly so, and I noted that in some old minute meetings that we found, what if trustees call a meeting once a week? Well, then I say, it better be for a darn good reason, because people are going to be mad if they have to show up for and sit through these meetings very often. And if you need $75 that bad, come and see me. I'll just, give you $75, because no one wants to sit through these meetings. So, I do, respect his concern that perhaps he wasn't paid properly if his term started in November, and in the calendar year, we would have paid Randy Seidel for the first special meeting, which I think was in October. So technically, it was without his office. So I said, well, let's put this on the agenda. We'll talk about it. If we had an oversight and we need to, fix that, we can certainly make it retroactive, not a problem. But the ordinance has to be updated. Whether we're going to say that it's clear and it's going to be per term of office, or if we're going to change it to just say 125 and 75 a meeting, or whatever. If you want to adjust it as we get to that compensation.
I think it also fell in, into the ordinance with your pay also, right? With the meeting attended. And then, I don't know if, I know clerk or Trap shows up and we're paying her the stipend also. Is there a limit on that? Or is that just per meeting that she shows up to take the minutes?
When she takes the minutes, right.
So there's no limit on that.
Or whoever takes the minutes, right? Right.
Exactly.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be her. There's meeting stipends for that.
I know.
So, Mark, do you have any thoughts on that wording for term of his or her office? Because I didn't really, legal speak, right? What does that mean? Technically, Megan and Nathan have both now in their second term. Does it start over in November 20th because they took a new oath, or is it a continuation of theirs because they got paid in October?
Yeah, that's another.
I think the reference to the term of office means you're elected for 4 years. And so during that 4-year term of office, if you attend the meetings for which additional compensation is made, you'll get paid for that. I don't think I think the intent of it was not confusion, but clarity, that we have defined, council members have defined in your ordinances and under the state law, the General Law Village Act, you have defined terms of office. They used to be 2 years. Law changed a number of years ago. Now they're 4. And it just meant that, in my opinion, you're going to get paid if you fulfill those requirements during the term of your office. You're not going to get paid before you're in office. You're not going to get paid after you're in office. It's during your term of office. If you attend that number of meetings, you'll get paid that amount. I don't find it confusing. It may be confusing in the implementation, but the wording itself seems clear to me.
So are you saying that Justin would have continued to get the meeting money even though that we had exhausted ours, but he had not exhausted his?
Right, because you don't have, not everybody has, you each have the same term of office in terms of length. You do not have the same term of office in terms of when you serve. You have, I believe, 4-year terms, 2 trustees or 3 each time. And so it's possible that you would have exhausted yours, but a newer trustee would not have exhausted his.
I counted like there might be 5 meetings from July to November.
His or hers.
That he didn't attend because he wasn't a trustee then.
Right.
So that didn't count against his 16.
Right.
Right.
If he's not in office.
And if I remember, I think the 16 came from, we have the 12 months, and then typically we had our budget meetings that were usually 4. That gave us the 16. And when we had special meetings, usually they were very quick meetings, for some special purpose, and we're in and out. And That's not always the case, but that's where we came up at that 16.
I think to a certain extent, the 16 is, and I don't mean this disparagingly, it's an arbitrary number.
Right.
You could pick 20. I mean,
But I think that's where the
it's-
16
right, there's a
came
point
from.
of reference. How many meetings had we been going to carry out the village business? And it seems 16, and maybe, as Mrs. Malzahn said, you might attend fewer meetings. There might not, when I say attend fewer, not because you're absent, but because they weren't called. So there might be fewer meetings to attend. And I think 16 was, as you point out, representative, or at least an attempt to hit a number that was fairly accurate.
So it seems like that if you apply it that way, that shouldn't be too hard of a, like how many meetings did he not participate in that fiscal year because he came in November? And if it was 5, if it was 4 meetings and another one, he just keeps counting.
The confusing part to me would be in the instance of Nathan and Megan, where they had the special meeting in October, and they both took their new oath of office for their reelection term in November. So
Yeah.
is that considered a start of a new term? So their 16 starts November 20th? Or do you include the one from October?
And if you need clarification, I think that wasn't the intent. If you're continuing on in service, you wouldn't go back and get that. I think that would be
technically,
the
it would be a new
intent.
term, right? You're getting sworn in again.
Yeah, but I would think that same individual with the same social security number had received those other payments. I mean,
I guess then, so
the
if you-
intent, the intent.
Ran and lost the next 4 years, but then ran the 4 years after.
Then it applies. Then it applies because they didn't have those meetings. But if they were serving
Yeah.
a term and another term, they've never missed that. The intent.
Yeah, so I guess the wording then, put during the term of his or her office. So that's where it's the word term.
So if it needs something to specify that it's contiguous, and I don't care what you guys, but if it, I think the intent was that if you're
I can
serving
respect that.
2 terms,
Yeah.
that doesn't apply. You've never missed
Again,
that.
it's not about $75, it's more the wording.
And you can change it to calendar year. You can decide what you want it to be. I mean, there was a time when trustees didn't get paid for special meetings.
Or any meetings, I believe.
I think there was always some compensation.
If it was calendar year, then it would be a new elected in December could not get paid for his first meeting then if it was calendar year, if they'd already had 16 leading up to.
I would think it would be fiscal year, right?
That's what I
It would
think
be
currently
fiscal
is.
year because that's what we budget for.
Which still
That's
then
just
leaves
my
us in a
thought.
situation where newly electeds would cap out before getting 16.
It's more of an accounting thing. Well, do you count 16? Is it more record keeping in HR, right? So that if you hadn't met your
Could it be election year?
4 extra, I don't
November 20th to November
whatever you want to
20th.
suggest, it matters.
Yeah.
It matters not to me. I
Yeah,
want it to
that's
be
what-
fair. We can leave it the same, or you could make a proposal.
Or election, because then it always encompasses the full term of an election.
You can pick the term, and you can also say, but shall not be paid more than X number of dollars, or shall not receive more than X compensation for X number of special meetings or meetings regardless of when attended. I mean, you can play with it.
So no cap on the number of meetings, just the cap on the overall pay.
I'm not making that suggestion, I'm just saying how you can manipulate.
Or you can just say they get paid their $125 a month and $75 per meeting attended.
And leave it.
And remove the cap.
That seems the easiest, right? That just seems to clarify, no matter when it is, if we have a meeting and you show up, you get the $75.
Change that for trustees, president. And Megan, did we talk about something with, I know we talked briefly before about the clerk getting the stipend. I thought it was you had some,
Yeah, I had suggested, it was at the budget meeting that only the 4 of us were at, that all of the other elected officials were getting paid to be here at the meeting, except for the treasurer. So at that time, I had suggested maybe we should throw that into our budget, that why is it all the other elected officials get paid to be here, except for the treasurer.
She's got a report to give, or she, the office.
The
has a
report can be in writing and put in our packet. She's not required to be here. She chooses to be here, which is fine. She can give her report in person, but she can also just submit it in writing like we get reports from the fire chief or from, right.
Does Chief Dan get paid?
Right, they don't get paid to come here. Our supervisors,
Yeah.
Dan and Al and Tim and,
It's another good
right.
point, yeah.
So, right, we are conducting the business at this meeting. That's why we're
Yeah.
included in that
Just a
stipend.
suggestion that was brought up. Yeah.
So, any motions on the floor before we move on to clarify
I'll make
it?
a motion that we remove the cap of the 16, just to make it easy. And I think 16 is pretty much how many we do.
Or less, right, I agree.
Right.
Okay, so you want to just
Because our
remove...
budget
right.
process
Take out after the comma.
Our budget process is streamlined now, that we don't go through 4 different meetings for that. So
Yep.
I would
Correct.
make the motion that we would just really remove the cap of 16.
Okay.
For trustee and president?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Just mine is separate.
yes, for both.
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, done. All right, let's talk weed.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk marijuana, which is, again, the audience is waiting on bated breath to talk about marijuana again. Just to sort of recap, as you know, we rescinded our second ordinance, and I was instructed to draft a new version, which is ordinance number 557, which you have in front of you, taking into account the countless points that we discussed and items requested and revisions and notations. So you saw this there. I did send this out about a week in advance, again, giving as much time as possible for everybody to review it and to offer some comment and some feedback. I did hear from Trustee Parker. He called and he had one concern that he expressed to me regarding paragraph, let me just find that, under,
Looking for it right now.
yep, under, I didn't highlight it. That's not under transfer of licenses. Yes.
She's under the awarding of licenses or...
Points. Trying to find the exact language. I apologize that I don't have that
Just a
highlighted.
page number.
Right.
Justin, you got the page number?
Yeah, I'm looking for it, I can't.
You can't find it either. It basically made reference to that once an application is submitted, because we changed it to unlimited licenses. And it said, once an application was submitted, the clerk shall review as long as licenses are available, comma, and then shall forward the copies on to the appropriate people. And Justin's point was, well, if we're having unlimited licenses, why would there not be a license available? And so when I had the conversation with Mark, we discussed that we're not still licensing for every marijuana business. So, for instance, if somebody wanted to submit an application for a micro business or a place where they could be consumed,
something we're not doing.
We're not licensing for that, so therefore a license wouldn't be available.
Makes sense.
So I just wanted to let you know, that's why I left it in there based on that conversation.
Okay, perfect.
And that was the only feedback that I had
Couple
from
other
the
things
trustees.
popped up. I don't know if it's huge changes or anything, but I guess I overlooked it when I breezed through it on the phone. The bonus point section.
You got a page
What was
number?
6, right at the bottom, talks about awarding points. What is the purpose of having a bonus section? It just seems like if that's something we're looking for, why not just include that in the overall total?
Well, it was discussed about making sure that we had the most qualified people right? We were giving licenses to the most qualified applicants to make sure that it wasn't some fly-by-night opportunity. In fact, there was discussion of, we wanted to institute a minimum score at that point so that it couldn't just be somebody who, wanted to open up a business out there. When I looked at the criteria of operating a business, right, I thought A through L of those items were pertaining to how do you operate a business. The bonus points aren't affected by your ability to operate a business. That is typically, I consider that a bonus to the Village of Romeo. If somebody has, in bonus points A, whether the stakeholders demonstrate experience with owning, operating, and/or managing a similar business in a highly regulated industry. To me, that's a bonus. If they can demonstrate that, doesn't mean that they are not able to operate a business. That doesn't mean that they can submit an application if they can't demonstrate that, but it's a bonus to us if they can. And then the second one, provide a detailed proposal for community outreach, education, or partnership opportunities. Again, a bonus to the village, so that if somebody's giving that opportunity, if they're buying back in and supporting whatever proposal we have going on, whether it's a older adults part, RARA, or an older adults facility, or work in another community education, whatever. Again, I consider that a bonus to us. And I weighted them pretty highly.
Yeah,
because
that's why I was surprised they weren't just included in the overall.
But that was the thought process behind it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just seems different that it's.
I mean, you could change the point total and say it's just 130 blank, and they can be,
Because really doesn't make any difference whether they're called bonus points or not. If someone can still obtain those points by having that, then it's still going to go towards their total anyways. And then the other thing with the points is I didn't see, or do we still have a minimum? Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe I overlooked it. Where was that at?
If you look on the top of page 7, overall application review point scoring shall be conducted by a minimum of the 2 people, 1 person from the village clerk, 1 person from the village treasurer, with assistance of legal advice from the village attorney and/or assistance from a third-party consulting firm on the basis of assigned points. This is the top paragraph. From 0 points to 130 points, with the lowest overall total score as 0 points and the highest possible score being 130.
So we have no required minimum.
There is, yep.
Oh, okay.
If you follow along after all to the middle of page 8, the village clerk shall forward all information, including final scoring, date and time stamping, notations to the village president, who at the next Romeo Council meeting, unless postponed for good cause or otherwise provided herein, shall approve licenses in order of highest point total, and then the date/time receipt. Further, an applicant must have a minimum score of 90 points in order to be considered to receive a license.
I missed that. Thank you.
And in the event of a scoring tie, where one establishment would buffer out another based on zoning requirements, the applicant's scoring tied applicants will award, clearly that needs to be fixed grammatically, will be awarded licenses in the order in which the application was received according to the date and time stamp. So if there is a tie, it's the first come, first serve. Yes.
Can we just also throw that minimum, can we just be redundant and also put it in the same scoring spot too? So that it's, as people are reading that, put the minimum of 90 also.
So you're talking about on the top of 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I did talk to Steve Casson. I asked him to take a look at the GIS mapping. If we were going to consider it unlimited, how many could we put there with the 1,000-foot buffer? Because we talked about how many businesses do we want out there and how many would actually fit. So he started from the southeastern most point of the village and mapped out that we could fit 9 total. Now, the reality is, somebody's probably not going to go on the southeasternmost corner, right? It's probably going to be somebody that's dropped right smack in the middle that's going to set that 1,000-foot buffer. So I left it at 1,000 just for discussion purposes to show you this. But Steve Caston thought that probably 750 was a decent number. If Ford Motor Company campus does sell and gets revamped by another industrial user, you could fit an additional 9 in there if that development is used for that purpose. So in theory, leaving it at 1,000 with Ford redeveloped, you could have 18 facilities.
But that's if you had one starting in the corner, 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet.
Yes. He did agree that, and you'll see the language changing, or hopefully you read it, that, secondary schools don't count, right? So we don't have to worry about the driving school. I actually changed it to read K through 12
I see that.
in here for clarification. Right? It still can't be, by state law, 500 feet from a school.
Yeah.
I mean,
For
sorry,
clarification, the
from a church.
1,000-foot buffer, that between facilities, right, not just between licenses? So if someone has multiple licenses at the same facility, that's still okay? Okay, perfect.
Yep. Now, Mark had some concerns, and I'll share them because, they're valid in this discussion regarding the use of points. We're not using the use of points competitively, right? Because we're not offering a range of points awarded. If they complete it to what the application calls for them to commit, and they complete it, and Catherine deems it complete, they get the points. Mark said if you're not scoring them competitively, why would you use the points, period, using a point system? I still think the points are valid because of the 130 total and the minimum score. If we're going to use a minimum score of 90 to award, then you have to have some sort of base point to have the scoring done. Again, it's an all or nothing, right? It's not, well, it says you can get 10, but I'm only going to give you 5 because your grammar was terrible, right? You're not going to have that issue.
Is there any weakness in that legally, the defending, is there something we should worry about?
Well, my concern is twofold. One is you're not granting unlimited licenses. That has a connotation that I think is problematic. You're not putting a cap on the number of licenses. So I caution you against taking the position that we're allowing unlimited number of licenses.
So should we change that, you think?
Well, there may be some other things you want to do, I don't know. But you're not putting a cap. You're not saying, a couple of iterations of this that you discussed, 1 or 2 that you passed and then rescinded, had a limited number of licenses. Thus, the need for the competitive process. The statute says if you put a cap or limit the number of licenses, that you have to provide for a competitive process to select those who will receive the license. So if you're not putting a cap, then the marketplace, theoretically, or your distances are going to determine the number of available licenses, not your ordinance. You're not capping. You're not saying only 1 grow or only 2 secure transporters. You've removed the cap. And so market forces and distance are going to determine the number of licenses and the number, and more practically, the number of applications. And so my question is, why score or have a score at all when you're not going to have a competitive process? You don't need a competitive process if you don't have a cap. And so to what purpose are you going to put the points? You're not going to, your ordinance as drafted, you say in 557-006, the license applications, the application shall include the following information. And so all of that information, you've itemized it in those subparagraphs, you're going to require in your applications. If somebody submits an application that doesn't have that information or some of that information, under your ordinance, you reject it. It's not a sufficient application. It's not an application that meets the ordinance. And so I question if you're not introducing by using the point system, when the points aren't going to be used to determine an applicant, an eligible applicant, are you introducing an issue with respect to selection that may be more problematic than helpful?
I can respect that.
And so if you do note on the bottom of page 4, where it says the business licenses, there is no unlimited, and it doesn't speak to an amount. The words unlimited,
Was it on there before?
it was.
Well, there was a
Okay.
limit. There was a-
First it was a limit, and then it said unlimited
It did,
in the
okay.
last version, and now it doesn't.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. I thought I saw it.
And my concern about the, using the word unlimited is that if, based on distance and market conditions, that the industrial area, if you will, is built out with marijuana businesses, and the next one comes along, and you say, well, there's no more space because we have the 500 feet, the 1,000 feet, whatever your measuring distances are and your measuring points, and the person looks at the ordinance and says, well, hey, wait a minute, it says unlimited, give me my license. And so I just think you're better, if you don't want to put a cap on it, don't put the cap, but I recommend you not use the unlimited, the word unlimited, which you haven't, and I think that's appropriate.
So you were saying 9 currently with the 1,000 foot, and did he give a number if we change that to, you said 750?
Well, he didn't, because it's very difficult to calculate where the first license will be awarded,
Yeah.
right? That's the determining factor, and if it's right smack dab in the middle, right, you're probably only going
Yeah,
to
just
get,
for a maximum number, that he didn't give
he
that.
said 9.
With
9
1,000 foot.
with the 1,000 foot, if you started at the first foremost
But he didn't, I
corner.
was just wondering, how many more would that include if we changed that to 750? The maximum?
I did not ask him to map that out.
Can we cap it?
That's what we just talked about, was no cap.
No.
But
Probably.
Mark's point is valid, very valid.
Yeah.
Typically, you come in here after you, even if the Ford Motor property does sell, and you said another 9 there, turn into 18, and they get right up to that point, and might end up coming across the highway.
Well,
Because there's no limit.
we've
Well,
got
it's
the
limited
borders.
by our
Didn't
zoning.
challenge anything,
Right,
right?
right. It's limited by the zoning, which restricts it to 1,000 feet from property line to property line.
Of marijuana
Right,
facility.
that's how many can go in this area. We've mapped that out. We've said in this quadrant, you can go, but there has to be 1,000-foot buffer between property line to property line.
So you have the 9. You have the 9 according to our consultant of what he mapped out.
If the first one went in that corner, you could fit 9. If the first one goes on McLean Drive, you're not going to fit 9.
And then the next one's 1,500 feet away.
Right.
Then,
What I'm saying is,
not if everybody is just 1,000 feet, So it's going to be there in a
Keep
few.
it at
I guess that
1,000.
wording then is kind of
leave that
confusing.
at our ceiling, no matter where they put their facility.
Right, I think that we're better off to see where the market is driven.
Yeah.
If we find that there are some really successful businesses that are operating out there, and there's an issue with space, we can ask the planning commission to amend the zoning to reduce it
We don't
based
want our
on that.
industrial park
Right?
weed.
No, we do not. I'm just suggesting that you do have the latitude at a later stage to still reduce it if you find that it's of value to us.
But not as to the distance from schools.
Right.
That's
fine.
statutory.
I guess the wording, just from the conversation, was, it says 1,000 feet between facilities. It doesn't clarify if that's marijuana facilities, it just says facilities. So I guess the way it's written, I mean, you could say 1,000 foot from anyone.
Well,
It just says facilities.
The facility by definition explains that.
It does say facility in the definitions?
I think it was changed to marijuana establishment
Yeah,
was the
so-
definitional. So
we need to change
to
that.
match that,
Where is that word?
So on page 5, the top where it talks about there shall be a buffer of at least 1,000 feet between facility, that should be
So you
changed
want to say
to
establishments there? okay?
marijuana establishment. Just clarify that so that it's not any establishment.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'd like to just open it up to the floor if there's anybody who wanted to offer a comment, because you've all been so patient with us at this time. So, anybody? Tracy, yes.
I was just going to make just one comment. With Mr. Clark was talking about the scoring and thinking that maybe it might be a good idea, if you are going to go with the buffer still, to maybe make all those things that Mr. Parker was suggesting, like certain things are just required. And then if you do have someone that comes in with buffer situation where there's two people, maybe keep those bonuses, and that would be the thing that would, make the difference. So in other words, everybody has to have, A through whatever, and then, that just gets you in, and if you're in there first, you're good, but if there's two with a tie, then maybe the bonus, so you don't have scoring for those other things. And that would make it easier for the clerk to just go check, 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 but we got everything, boom, you got your time, date, or whatever, and then if there's an issue where there's two that came in like, in that same zone at the same time, which, that might be rare for them to come exactly at the same time. But then that might be just the difference, So just to make it a little bit more of a box checking kind of situation.
Okay.
Because you don't want the clerk isn't going to actually be making decisions, right? She's going to be saying, okay, do they have a business plan? Do they have a architectural plan? Yep, they got all that. Okay, we can turn it in now. And then just, that's what I'm thinking might be easier all around.
Any thoughts on that?
I kind of agree, same with what Mark said, just maybe eliminating the points, just make certain requirements, and that's it. You do this, and you do this, this, and this, and if you've got a property that fits within the zoning or the setback or the buffer zone, then you get a license.
And what if somebody comes in and so it's not they don't have any experience, right? What if somebody doesn't have any experience in a marijuana facility or a similar business?
Yeah.
Do you
Just
give
like any
them
other
any
business.
latitude?
It's just like any other business. They're taking their chance. They're throwing out the money for the application. They put the money into the building. If their business fails, that's on them. It's like any other business in any of our districts. That's on them.
So then you want to eliminate your idea of a minimum score?
Not my idea.
Yeah, it was your idea, actually.
Well, I think it was mine. Originally, I think it was mine.
Okay.
Yeah. But, yeah, as long as certain things are required, right? If that's something that we want to require, they have a business plan that check, you do this check, you got whatever,
I think the
background
minimum
checks.
was introduced when we had a whole different concept of limiting the number, and then we wanted the best possible in there. Now, if there is no cap, then yeah, just check off the boxes and you can come in.
Okay. Was there anybody else from the audience that wanted to speak? Thank you, Bud.
You want a cap.
Good evening. Just taking Justin as an example, he's an electrician, right? You've got certain things you have to do, right? With the state, all your regulations, if you want to work for Romeo or Bruce Township.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing when, I agree with the president, when you're doing those bonus points, she's looking at, I think what we did is at 35 years in a highly regulated industry, automotive, things don't blow up as we did. Those are the things that we were looking at. In other words, you want the best company to come in Romeo as bonuses. So if you're doing community service, if you have experience, yes, you could lose the business, but you might be, I think, just getting a pass for a lot of companies that really haven't honed in. Like, we've spent a lot of time and money getting this information potentially to you. Now, if someone just says, yeah, I got a business plan, it's 3 pages, and ours is 66 pages, or we have SOP, standard operating procedures, that has a book this thick of everything we're going to do for the safety of the community, I think that's important, rather than just check, check, check. The other thing is, I don't understand the 1,000 feet. Is it from the front of the door to the back door? Is it front door to the other front door?
It's the
Is it
property
from the
line.
sidewalk?
Property line.
It's the property line?
It's
Property
an
line to
entrance door
property.
Okay.
on here.
So closest property line to, I don't know if it says closest or not, maybe I shouldn't say that. Nearest property, point of property line to property line.
Okay. I still think that's going to cause a little bit of problem. If you're unlimited, what does it matter if you have two electrical companies next to each other, two machine shops? You don't regulate them. It doesn't seem like you're focusing on marijuana as like you have to disperse those companies, and it really kind of messes up the angle. Like you said, you could go to the southeast corner and establish one there, but someone gets right in the middle of the town, or middle of the industrial zone, that takes out a lot of property around there. It's like a nuclear bomb went off, right? So now you have to draw that line, and someone might have property in that area that wants to get into this business, but they're now unable to do it because that person got the first license. So I don't know if that's really kosher for me, but I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
So maybe going along with what Zach was saying with a maximum of X amount of number of facilities, so if they end up being 3 right in a row, we're still just limiting the overall number then?
But then that leads to Mark's concern
Yeah.
about how do you pick the 3
Yeah.
without getting sued because you excluded the 4th,
Yeah.
right? This is like the wild, wild west, right? But every municipality, and Mark has shared, many emails with me from other communities that are trying to grapple with the perfect solution to put in place. And, in this litigious society, people will file a lawsuit for whatever. Maybe they don't like the color of the paper the application is on because it hurt their eyes and they had a disadvantage to that. Being tongue-in-cheek, please don't sue me for
I
that.
can't speak for Mr. Clark.
Right?
I think you were talking about unlimited as opposed to 3.
No, what I'm saying is don't use the word unlimited. Before, which the law permits you to put a cap. You don't have to say all comers just meet these requirements. But as Ms. Poznanski mentioned, the thinking, the discussion at the board table has changed. You've gone from, let's have a few of each of these categories to, well, let's not put a cap on it. And I think that's fine. The law permits that as well. But don't use the word unlimited, which I think I've persuaded you to do that. And so then one of the questions maybe becomes, I don't know, is, all right, we know you have to be 1,000 feet from schools. The law says that. You can't change that. The other distances, do you say they should, you don't put a distance, except you can say perhaps, I don't know if this is a good idea, I really don't want to muck this up for you, but you say, but no more than 4 within 1,000 feet, or something to that effect, where it doesn't, hopefully, it addresses the question of the first one who comes in the middle messes up the spacing for everyone else. And so there are probably, and I'm mathematically illiterate, but there are probably a number of permutations that are far beyond what you need. But you could look at it in that manner as well, that okay, we're not going to cap the number of licenses. The 1,000 feet, as Mr. Demchek said, may be problematic, but we don't want the whole industrial area to be marijuana licenses, so let's address it this way. Let's interject or provide for what essentially would be not, you would avoid a concentration. You'd avoid a concentration of a whole street of marijuana establishments. But again, I don't know whether that's a good idea. I don't know if other communities are doing that. I don't know if that issue has been litigated, but I'm sure that you are within the bounds of the law, only limited by your imaginations.
Well, and I thought in one of the older ordinances that the 1,000 feet had something to do with being able to determine a certain smell coming from which facility. So that if they were too close, how would we then we needed a whole procedure on how to determine who to give a fine to.
And that was one of the discussions. The space was not only to determine, but I think at some point, and again, I don't know this business, at some point, the technology has improved where the distance before was to allow for a dissipation of the odors. I think maybe the technology makes that not quite as important as it might have been a few years ago. I don't know the answer to that, but that may have been one of the considerations as well.
The one thing in earlier conversations and discussion, the intent to do the limit would be, let's say that people want to be here and they'll pay double the rent of what a manufacturing company is that's running, and all of a sudden their landlord says, I'm sorry, in June you're moving out, and because they're paying double what manufacturing can be. We don't know that that's the case, but right now it is. It's very, very profitable. It's the Wild West, and in 5 years we wouldn't want that to all of a sudden then start to shrink and harm our industrial district. And I still think that's a good conservative way to approach. And what President Malzahn had said is, if we go and let's say it's 9, and I don't care if it's 1,000 or 750. If it's 750, I'd probably add 2 or 3 that instead of 9, maybe 12. And I don't, so that doesn't make a difference. But if we find that this is something and it's proving to be good, and all of a sudden there are more applicants, we can always go to, the Planning Commission and see if they want to ease any of those, change those restrictions. So.
I don't like the 1,000 foot or even 750. There are a lot of established shops out there that aren't going anywhere, so I'm not concerned about every shop becoming a weed manufacturing facility. They're a business, and the state regulates a lot of the equipment that they have to make sure that there is not a lot of odor coming from them. It's just giving my opinion. Because the 1,000 feet to 750, that just throws a whole other monkey wrench into it. And I don't care how many plastic shops are out there. I don't care how many tool and die shops are out there, as long as there's businesses going in. That's all I have. Thanks.
I just had a quick thought, Mark, into Tracy's point about the 2 bonus points. So if we remove the points from items A through L, right, it's literally just a checkbox, can we score those bonus points, which then are more, does that create an issue of awarding a license to find a way to get the best candidate, right? If we have a tie, if we have a zoning issue, if we have, are those 2 bonus points too subjective in themselves to have that sort of be the determining factor?
I don't think on the face of it they're too subjective. The issue that will either be problematic or it won't, the issue that will arise or it won't, is for what purpose are you using the points? Again, if it's part of a competitive process, then you want to make sure that it's as objective as you can make it be, and that it truly is competitive. It's not, well, I like the person's apparel who came and dropped this off, and so they're going to get the bonus points. And so the points are problematic. I think of the bonus points, limiting it to if you have a situation based on distance that somebody's not going to be eligible, that they've otherwise met all the requirements of the ordinance, but because they can't, there's a facility or a structure that's 500 feet away but not 750, or you get 2 people wanting the last available spot, I think the bonus points are probably appropriate. And all I can tell you is, if there's enough money involved, the person who feels slighted is going to litigate it. And I don't know that you can draft absolutely against that. I think you try to be as fair and reasonable and objective as you can. And you must be. The law requires that you treat similarly situated people or businesses similarly. You have to do that. And if you do, then hopefully it won't be an issue. But if you don't, or it's perceived that you don't, then it's going to be a problem. Unfortunately, you're not going to know until it becomes a problem.
Right.
I mean, you could say, well, somebody with red hair is not going to get a license. You know, right out of the chute, that's problematic. That's not going to work. And so what you're trying to address appropriately is, well, what happens if we have two people similarly situated and there's only one possible, not because of your cap, you don't have a cap, but because of your geography, because of your distance, we have two people with one spot left. How do we choose between the two of them? I think the bonus point situation is probably appropriate in that instance.
But it can just be you do this one, you get 10 points, you do this one, you get 20 points, because then both those facilities could just do both of them, right? And they're going to tie again.
Well, except then you have the first come, first serve, the first filer. And so if you look at it from the first filer perspective, maybe you don't need the bonus points either.
Right, I think that's awesome.
It's tough.
No cap.
Do we have camping a restriction on our sidewalk out front of the village office? Because the people, right, it's going to be like Black Friday, literally, on our doorstep.
We're going to complain about parking.
Right. Anybody else from the audience that wanted to offer comment on this? All right. Any other thoughts from council? Any other directions on how you want to proceed?
I still think we can change the restrictions later and be on the conservative side. So I still would have that. If the scoring's going to be problematic, maybe the first part gets removed and then we keep a bonus section that's another box. But
Yeah, I mean, just have
I'd
some
like
of
to
this
get this
like
done.
required, eliminate points, make some of it required.
Well, it's all required.
It's all
It's all
required.
required already.
Then, yeah,
That A
then why
through
we-
L,
yeah.
the A
Oh,
through-
I see what you're saying, yeah.
The A through L and the concluding paragraph, a detailed description, those are all required.
Yeah, so just eliminate the points.
Myself, I want to see a cap. Eliminate litigation, you set out the number that you're going to deal with.
No, Mark is suggesting that you don't.
I'm
He's saying don't
suggesting,
use the term unlimited.
right, do not, but
If there's 9 out there, then the first 9 that's in there, or whomever meets the requirements are there, then it's a dead issue. It says it right here in the ordinance manual.
Well, and the idea of changing things down the road makes me leery. If we start out at 1,000 and in 5 years we decide 750 is better, say we have the first 5 people here and only the first 4 got it, and you didn't get it because we didn't have enough room, and now we opened it up and you still don't get one, then you're going to sue them. Like, to me, keeping it consistent is going to be very key.
yeah. Well, down the road, you could just eliminate that.
You could, but you're going to run a risk here that, well, then why didn't you just let me have it 5 years ago? Now you're changing it?
and I think that's a legitimate concern, but I think it's probably not going to be too problematic, because you're allowed to amend your ordinances, you're allowed to change your ordinances as circumstances change, as your community changes, as the type of development that you want to see based on what the Planning Commission recommends. For instance, you thought that it was a good idea to limit this to the industrial area. You may think in 5 years, well, maybe we could allow some in the commercial or the downtown area. Maybe we could have a provisioning center or retail. I don't know, and I'm not suggesting that's a good idea. I am suggesting you can have that thought process, and if you expanded the area where the businesses or the establishments, using the terminology of the ordinance, could be located, somebody that said that I think would be hard pressed, they can say it, but I don't think it's a successful argument. Well, 5 years ago, if I'd have known I could have gone into the downtown, I would have submitted a competitive or a comprehensive application, and you would have awarded it to me. So I think the concern is legitimate, I don't think it's as problematic as some of the other things that with which you've wrestled.
Can I add, Steve had said he recommended 750, or he thought 750 would be appropriate?
He thought that you could probably still get 7 or 8 if you reduced it to 750 because the proximity, right? The reality is that it's not going to be starting point on the, on that corner.
All right.
So,
From what I've heard, and we can just see if this, I'll make a motion that we remove the initial scoring, keep in the bonus as another check, and we would make it to 750 feet. I think that covers everything I kind of heard.
then I won't be able to include the 90 points, right? We're going to just take out that paragraph that you wanted, put it on the other top of that page, but okay.
Yep.
And we're going to change the word on the top of page 6 from facility to establishment. I have that note, and changing it to 750. Okay.
That's my motion.
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry, what was that, Catherine?
Can you repeat that, just to make sure I got all the key points?
There's the clerical. There were, part of that, we have the notes, the things we were fixing, changing. The main thing I want to do is remove the scoring, keeping in the bonus.
Yep.
What would the bonus be for then?
For anything that there would be another check box. Do you, any community involvement, what things, that would be in that category?
It's not going to determine who gets a license or not because there's no scoring involved.
It would be for a tie. That if there is, the bonus would be there's two people that are the same, they're having that, they want the same piece of property, and one has the bonus.
I think we should just go with the first come, first serve if there's a tie.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're going to actually time stamp them, not just date stamp them, then you could probably just get rid of
Right,
them.
and that's a very critical point, right, the time and the date, very, very important, if you're going to do it that way.
We got one more member who'd like to say something.
Can I make a comment real quick before you guys do your motion? Sure. So just regarding the, because like Trustee Bartholomew said.
I'm sorry, real fast, just give us your name. James McKenna, right, yeah.
You need an address?
That's up to the clerk, but at least the name is good, so, okay.
No parties tonight, so.
Okay.
But regarding that industrial park where the current zoning is at, there is a lot of occupied businesses. So in terms of having that 1,000-foot, 750-foot, 500-foot, if there's only 2 open buildings that pop up on one street and the rest are fully occupied, that limits almost anyone from going with an application to where pretty much only one person could get in there. So I don't know if this could be a possible resolution, but being that that area is fully occupied and there's probably maybe only 2 vacant buildings that someone could realistically fill right now, maybe putting a cap of 6 licenses, reducing competition, so it's first come, first serve, so the applications would be time stamped, and then you'd still have a requirement of points, because I do agree that we should get someone qualified in here that should be coming into the area, not someone that can just put their first and last name on the application, but not get it to a point to where it's, if you get these bonus points, you beat this guy, it's first come, first serve, there's 6 licenses, you get your application in, as long as you meet our required scoring, you're good to go.
And it just goes to, my concern is, and I don't know, because I haven't even seen that that's there, if it's something people want, and I don't even know how many are owner occupied, I would hate to see somebody paying 2 or 3 times rent and a business saying, sorry, you can't pay enough money, we have this business that wants it and we're going to kick you out. That is my concern, that the market for this, for per square foot rental, could be far exceed what it is for manufacturing, and I wouldn't want to do any long-term damage to that. That's my whole thought on that.
And I don't know if this maybe addresses it, but maybe that's where the cap of 6 could kind of come into play, to where it's kind of settling the market, because if people planned it out right and everyone got the perfect corner, the perfect center, you could honestly end up with more than 6. I think you had mentioned 9 of them was the max, based on the current 1,000 foot. I mean, I definitely can understand where that concern's at, and we would not want to see the area inflated with market. Although I'm sure there's a lot of businesses that have been there for 20, 30 years that don't plan on moving right away, and most of them probably are owner occupied.
But it would be the people renting.
Correct. Those people getting kicked out because
somebody's going to pay 3 times the rent.
I think we decided to get away from a limit on how many for legal issues.
And realistically, I'd love to tell you guys put no cap, no boundaries. let it go. And that's how most communities are doing it right now. They're mainly putting caps when it comes to the provisional centers. You generally see those cap out at a 3 to 6 because those are kind of more in a downtown type area, so they're not flooded with a whole block of dispensaries there. But in terms of the industrial area and the realisticness of how many buildings are, granted, I can't speak for how many are owner occupied, how many are leasing out the tenants, which could rebuttal that back and forth. But I feel like removing that boundary is going to make it a lot more safe to where maybe someone that owns a building on a street and another one comes open, now those two are now in a conflicting battle, probably battling with you guys at the city to say, well, hey, that guy put his application in, but this building just came up that I've been waiting on for 3 months. I want to do a business here in the city of Romeo. So just kind of throwing some ideas here at this point, but just kind of rebuttaling maybe that zoning buffer could also cause issues as well. But I completely see, putting a no cap obviously is going to protect, because if you put a limit on licenses, some guy that doesn't get a license is not going to be too happy. However, if it's clearly worded in there as first come, first serve, it's first come, first serve. There's only 6 slices of pizza, and first 6 people that get that pizza get the pizza.
But the cap, under the statute, if you provide a cap, you have to have a competitive process for selection. And so your competitive process, I would recommend against your competitive process being first come, first serve. I think that would be problematic. Yeah. And another thing, before you vote, I would recommend whatever happens, if what's been proposed passes or it doesn't and you have another running start at it, because of your publication requirements, you have to publish within 15 days of adoption, and some past discrepancies, not that I think there are going to be any, but what I would recommend is that whatever you adopt tonight, you see it at your next meeting in final form for formal adoption, that it be, these are the changes we want made to this draft, and bring it back, we'll act on it. I know you don't want to prolong it, and I'm not suggesting that to prolong it. I'm suggesting it so that everybody knows exactly what it is they want in the ordinance, and it is in there, and they voted on it, and it's what you adopt and what you publish, so that you don't get back on the merry-go-round that you were riding there for a while from, I don't know, March or April until now.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so if we're going to go through and do that, what I'm looking at is that we would make that clerical change to the facility. I didn't put the notes of what that is. You're going to take out the scoring portion and the minimum score. You're going to leave it in session for a vote. You're going to leave just a checkbox for ancillary, why should you be here, bonus.
That serves no purpose, though.
But it doesn't serve any purpose. It serves a purpose if there's 2 people that are looking for the same area.
First come, first serve time for the tiebreaker.
You could make the bonus information part of your application process. You could require that as part of the information you want submitted.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fine.
Okay. I'm sorry. So the motion was remove initial scoring, keep the bonus, page 6, change facility to the word establishment.
Is there anything else?
It was marijuana establishment.
Marijuana
and changing it to 750.
Changing what to 750?
The minimum was 750.
The buffer zone.
Which will require going back before Planning Commission, because they have to change that zoning.
That was in...
We can do that.
And Steve was thinking, I think he's supporting it,
Yes.
so our planner is supporting 750. That's why I went to the 750. And that gives it, it's a conservative way to move forward, and we are not locked into anything, and we hopefully won't have any lawsuits, and we can get moving.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll have to go to, my understanding, we'll have to get that approved through planning first, and then get it back in writing in front of us next month?
But the ordinance will be written with that, and the planning commission should be able to take care of that.
Well, I think you're going to have to amend your zoning ordinance, because I think the 1,000 feet was in the amendment to the zoning.
Right, that's what I'm suggesting.
ordinance,
Right, it'll
which
have
is what
to go.
Mrs. Malzahn meant. So if the planning commission goes along and says, yeah, but the 750 is a good idea, then you would not only adopt the ordinance you've been discussing, but you would also adopt another amendment to
At
your
the same
zoning.
time?
Yes.
At the
Yes,
same time?
yes. Yeah, so you don't have to lag
Right.
the implementation, or the implementation doesn't have to lag.
And does the zoning amendment require a public
It
hearing?
does.
Okay.
So in the
And
planning
we can hold
commission,
that public hearing, our body can hold the public hearing for the planning, for their zoning amendment recommendation.
At that meeting?
yes.
The public
and-
hearing does not have to happen at the planning commission, is what I'm asking.
But my recommendation is I would schedule a public hearing for both. You want more information. You want as much input from people so that all the input is received. I would, if the planning commission is going to hold a meeting and consider the amendment to the zoning ordinance, I'd have the public hearing there, and I would have another one here.
Which is how many days? Notice.
Trick question.
I know.
15.
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Has to
but-
be published 15 days before.
No, the publication's 15 days, but the notice, it could be 15. I don't know, but I can,
If you could get it published by the 21st.
Yes.
Which is Wednesday.
Yes.
So you'd have to submit it tomorrow for publication in the
Yes.
Macomb Daily. We would meet the 5th by one day,
Correct.
you just have to,
of 15 days for the planning commission meeting on August 5th. Okay.
Oh, do we have support?
Bartholomew's.
I thought you're still supporting his motion? Okay.
And this is to make the changes for next month, basically, right?
in the zoning ordinance.
Right. Yes. Is there any other discussion, input, requested changes, concerns, ideas?
We're close. We're close.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Nay.
One nay.
One abstain.
I don't know that you can abstain from that, Zach. Because you don't have a conflict of interest in that, and you didn't
And
state
that has to
that.
be notified before the voting begins, before the motion.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 4 to 2. Okay. So we will bring this back next month.
All righty.
Same time, same location.
Different day.
Different date. It is the 16th of August. Yes. Thank you for your patience, everybody.
That's what I'm feeling.
Okay.
I need to step out for a moment, but I will be right back.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
You just need 5 minutes? Okay. We need to just call a quick 5-minute recess. So if we could
I'll make a
just take
motion
5
to,
minutes.
do we have to make a motion for a recess?
Sure.
Make a motion to take a 5-minute recess?
What time is it? 8:53?
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, 5 minutes. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We're reconvening. It's 9 o'clock. Let's move on to item F of new business, the Village Hall carpet replacement. You have in your packet 3 bids to replace the carpet that is about 26 years old in the office area and up the stairs.
I appreciate the 3 bids. The only issue that I see with these would be, the first one is obviously from September of last year, and I know costs are gone.
Actually, we reached out to all of them, and they said they would still honor that, the pricing.
They would?
Yes.
Okay. Because when I talked to him, he said it would probably be higher.
Why are we just finding out that information right now from you? Why didn't you tell us you talked to him?
Because I just talked to him today.
Okay, well,
So,
Okay.
We reached out-
It's an open
just,
meeting,
right, a
Catherine.
couple-
Anything we discuss can happen in the open. We don't have to do everything behind closed doors.
no, but I'm just saying, that, well, why aren't we ever
Yeah.
informed until the very last minute?
It still is printed, it was in a packet. So anything that can be said behind closed doors or been on the phone can be said to the public.
Well, if they
So-
have
No, you're misunderstanding my
You're
question,
saying
never
you have
mind.
different information. You said that our bid is not good, and
Yeah, I saw
Clerk
this.
is saying it is good.
I saw this and I talked to Ryan at Village Floors, and he said, no, costs have probably gone up since September.
Probably, or he said that's not a good quote.
The only other, the subfloor was the main one I think he was talking about, because the cost of the plywood.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if they have verification that they sent notification out to them to tell, asking them if their price is the same, and they said yes, then we're covered.
email or whatever.
Yes, you have confirmation from Ryan.
So I'm gonna mention
And then
also-
the one from Dave's Carpet, the total actually just came, even though his estimate is dated 4/5, he came out and we did get updated information from him, but the date has not been updated, so.
Yeah, that was just my main concern. Yeah, I just-
Yeah. And honestly, my recommendation is the 55 from Dave's Carpet Company, because that includes the stairs, and that includes removal of the carpeting, which is huge.
Right.
Because the other one didn't.
Correct, yeah.
So you
The
want
stairs, they
carpet company?
need to be replaced. I mean, that's.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Dave's Carpet Company for $5,569.
Support?
We have a motion by Hart, we have support by Bartholomew.
Who did the other work? Didn't we have carpet already, some done?
Village Floors
Village Floors.
did the front, yes, with the hard surface, and in Sherry's office, the hard surface.
Just the hard surface.
Did Village Floors just not want to do the, taking the stuff out, or it just didn't get put on the bid?
We had to take the stuff out from the front as well, and,
Yes,
yeah.
that was done by DPW.
So you would not include the stairs?
He did not include the stairs. Right. I just am pointing it out, that they're right. He did not include the stairs in his quote.
Was he asked to?
I believe so.
I believe so.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
He did not include it in his bid.
But at the
Whether or
time, we
not-
were considering it a separate project, that's why the one bid doesn't have it.
And Dave's does do the subfloor also.
Yes. All right, so we have a motion by Hart. We have support by Bartholomew. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see then, just ask the other two then to quote it the same as Dave, so we've got
Apples to apples.
apples to apples. I mean, in all honesty, I'd like to keep it with someone in the village, by all means, if we can. Not to saying these other companies are no good, but if he's already done some work.
When we submitted the request to them for the work, and they came in and they looked at it, this is what their proposal is.
On our request, did it have a job description, a spec of what we want?
They came in and they looked at it, so yes, they
We're not
understood
writing anything down saying. this is
exactly
we
what they
want.
wanted.
And who did you talk to that said it was going to be more?
The owner?
Is that who you, for Village Floors?
Yeah.
Oh, he said it was going to be higher. And I don't know.
But still, I
Can you
mean-
put carpet in? I mean,
5,500.
yep.
Maybe we want to bid on the stairs.
Yeah. I'd like to see, just reach out and get quotes that are dated right with them included. If they're not going to.
So we get three bids, and then, right,
yeah.
we invited them
Yeah,
in.
Christine, I know, but I'm in construction too, and I know that if I see a date that's 9/23/2020,
Put a spec sheet
no
up.
one's going to honor that.
That's
No
why
one
we
has.
reached out to him.
I know, so.
Asked him if it was still valid.
So how hard
and
would it
he
have been, like,
confirmed
Ryan, can you
yes.
send me over an updated quote that says 9 or
They
whatever?
did.
We had it.
She asked them if it,
But it's not updated here. Neither is this. This is not 4/5. I mean, you know this too, Nate. I mean, you're in construction, right? If someone said, oh, I want you to honor this price, there's nothing
but what you're asking them to do, you're asking them to do the same exact thing they've already done.
Yeah, and as an owner of a company, if I have a bid that's months and months old, before I do work, I give them an updated
Well,
quote.
she asked them if this was still,
Yeah, so just send it over.
and then what they could have said was, you know what? If they felt that concerned about it, it will be the same. Let me just send you one with the same date. So we got to do all this over because that says 2020.
But he said it was going to be more, so it wasn't going to be less. If it was going to be less, I could see we'd go ask him for the lesser price.
Because he knew the stairs were.
But he said it was going to be more.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm just-
sheesh. But we don't know.
Yeah.
And we got consultants that actually write up specs. How come we don't put out a spec of exactly what we want?
We invited them in, and we told him exactly what we wanted.
How come
They
we don't
took
put it in
measurements.
writing so
No,
we can compare
they
apples to
took,
apples?
we met with them
So
in
they're all gonna
person,
bid on the same
then.
thing?
They're all in writing. They proposed in writing.
Right, we did.
So
We
I-
did exactly that.
And this guy's going to take the carpet, which is most of the work.
You know what?
Because it's a lot of work.
I don't go to jobs where the guy wants me to do something, I give him a bid for it, he says, that's not everything. I wanted that soffit done too, or I wanted that done too. I said, it's not ready. But it's just like Bartholomew, you work off a spec sheet. We have consultants that write up job descriptions and everything else? How come they don't write up the work to be done?
I don't know how they function. We invited them in. They each came into the office.
I'm just
Zach, they
saying,
came into the office, they
because
took the measurements.
we have one
We looked
person
at the
bidding on one
samples.
thing.
We picked out the swatch. This is what the office staff wants. Give us a bid on this.
Tell you what,
That's what they gave us.
I can make calls
So-
tomorrow. I can take all three of these. I'll call all three of them, ask them to bid on the same thing. I'll write it up. You can put it on Billy's letterhead and give them the piece of paper and say, give me a bid on this. We can have it for the next one. Something that simple, that quick. Would you like me to do that? I wouldn't mind doing that at all.
We have a motion on the floor right now.
And probably not like to wait a month to get
Right.
carpet. I mean, if you can't buy carpet.
Are we in any sort of time crunch, anything budgetary, any sort of time crunch that this needs to be done, that we shouldn't wait a month?
Or maybe it's a good time to do it, period.
Right, exactly.
And-
We have the 3 bids.
Yeah.
We've picked
Right.
out the carpet.
This
We
has
know what the
been-
measurements are.
Please start
We know
putting
what
out
the area is.
jobs.
We have
And-
been
right.
working on this since we had the lobby
On the
updated with
letterhead.
the hardwood floors. And again, this is an item that affects the staffing and the people that are in this building every day, nobody in this building, and they find it very frustrating that they need the improvements because we need to update a few things, rearrange a few things, but we are at a standstill
Rearrange
because we
something,
can't
that's right.
finish, because we can't do anything with the carpet, and this affects the staff that report there every day and have
I
to
can
deal with
respect that,
this.
and if it was such a concern, then why not just provide updated?
Just, you know what, just
Quotes.
call the roll, let them
Okay,
vote.
I mean-
It'll fail in a tie, and next month,
Right,
we'll bring the same
because we
quotes
follow
back when Matt
procedure,
is
and
here.
it's still
we'll
not
get
what
it
needs
done.
to be
Let Zach
done.
get 3 quotes.
Yeah, let me do it. I'll do
All
it.
right.
Get on the letterhead.
I mean,
Anyway,
this is kind of time sensitive, Zach.
I will put it on Billy's letterhead, and we can get it out to these guys tomorrow. Is that quick enough for you?
If that, I mean, I don't know if I can make that
And we'll bring it
decision,
back
but
in a
just for
month.
the sake of the staff, they've been waiting a
Anyway.
year for this.
Call the roll, please.
All right, Hart,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Poznanski,
No.
Parker,
No.
Fowler,
Yeah, no.
President Milzon.
Yes.
All right, so
Perfect.
can I also have somebody on this board explain to the staff why we are still halting improvements for their work environment? I will welcome that, please.
I mean, micromanaging the office
Right.
is to a gnat's.
The office been micromanaged since the president moved in.
Okay, exactly, it has. It has been. It has been, you're right.
So the whole thing, ransomware, everything.
So if you're going to
No,
ask
this is for the
these,
staff's concerns.
if you're going to ask these 3 businesses to requote their work,
What I'm gonna do is put the.
Write a spec sheet.
Thank you, sir. On
All
Billy's
right.
letterhead, and then fax it to them, email it to them, whatever you're gonna do, give it to them quickly so they can respond. So then they're all bidding on the same thing.
and have them turn this, have them turn their new quotes into
Send
the
their
village,
email, then
right?
they can send their email into the village clerk. Then it's
You're
done.
going to have to send them to
Then it's
the,
done.
okay, them.
Yep.
okay.
And then who's going to
You
explain
did all
this?
the same thing. You work in the industry. You know that we need to see what you want us to bid on.
It's
But I
fine,
do-
let's
Three of
move
them
on.
came to the office, don't forget
But I
that.
do have people ask me.
You can talk to anybody, but something goes in one ear and out the other. It's like here.
No, but then could somebody explain this to my staff? Why they still have to wait? They've been waiting a year for this.
To your staff. I'll explain it to them. Coming on Friday.
Move on to item G for new business, the village notification system. We talked about this at goals and objectives. You had the proposals, they're in your packet. Once again, Nixle was $3,500, depending on how many responses you wanted. And then Text My Gov is $2,500. They waived the setup fee, the implementation fee. You know, I realized how key something like this really is when we had just the holiday, right? People were confused. When is trash pickup day, right? People didn't put their garbage out on Thursday. Phone was ringing off the hook. People want to know, well, we thought it was Friday because it's a holiday, so isn't the trash pickup pushed back a day? No, it's not picked up a day. It would be really beneficial, because we did put that information on social media. Not everybody's on social media, right? We did put it on the village website. Not everybody visits the village website. So we need some sort of opportunity to engage in the residents. And I know that both of these are like, or especially the Text My Gov, right? They have to want to participate. They have to want to receive the notification system. But in this instance, when we have a tree down and an ambulance up on Prospect Street, or on the top of Church Street, it would be great to be able to notify them of what's going on instead of the phone calls coming in. Can you tell me what's going on? We can instantly just send that out. The residents can not have to make that phone call. They can just text in their concerns. Hey, is trash pickup on Thursday or is trash pickup on Friday? So I think there's a value to this. I don't know what that was.
So if someone's texting in a question, someone still then has to physically respond to that?
Yes, yes. But it's set up on the backside from the, like, Text My Gov. So their text, they read it. I don't know if it's in a logarithm, I don't know. But it's routed to the right person, right? So is this a building question? It gets texted or an email sent to Cindy, right? If it's trash related, it's being sent right to Mike at GFL. If it's related to an emergency for police, it goes right to the police department. It's going to help expedite communication to the village. So
then what does it come through as, like an email, or how does it come through on our end then? A text?
So yeah, will it be coming on our people's personal cell phones, or will we be?
As residents, I'm talking as the village office.
Yeah, will it come into all of our workers on their personal cell phones? Or like you're saying, through an email, how will that come through on our end?
Well, none of the workers have personal cell phones, with the exception of myself. They all have the village
my
phones.
phone, your phone. Like, I'm not saying village phones, I'm saying their own personal.
It doesn't come to you, it comes to the point of contact of which we set up through Text My Gov. We say, this is the person, if it's trash related, who the message goes to.
That's what I mean, so how does that come through then? Does it come in an email form? And then you constantly have to be checking that email to make sure that you're able to respond to someone in a timely manner? Or I'm just trying to figure out how it works.
I cannot answer that. I don't know for certain. I know there's a notification process.
It just seems like another moving part that's going to get
all I'm looking for is a way to communicate effectively with our residents.
So it says
we just need a way to communicate in these times when people don't want to pick up a phone call, right? They don't come into the village office, but they have an issue. I want to give them every opportunity to, make sure that their concern is addressed in as timely of a manner as possible. And if people are comfortable with this and we need to get the information out, it's a tool that we can utilize for low cost.
So this is two-way. It's not just us putting it out, they can return? They can send in text messages and questions, or is this just one way us sending out?
It's both.
Okay.
It's an emergency notification system. Hey, we're getting 4 inches of snow and there's no parking on the street because we have a snow emergency, right?
Plus, they can send messages in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
they do have to opt in, so we would need them to sign in and give us their information.
Yeah.
The first page is answering every one of those questions. The system works 24 hours a day and easily connects with your website and other communication methods. According to Pew Research. What's that?
That's just for the Text My Gov. That doesn't, there's no other explanations for the other quotes. I'm just making sure they're all, it's the same.
But I'm sure we're not going to
they're not the same. Right.
24/7.
Nixle is an emergency notification
And that's just
system.
out only?
Correct.
Okay,
gotcha.
that's what I'm trying to understand, is which way how this works. Now, my other question with the Text My Gov was, at the bottom of the quote page, that after the 2-year contract, the agreement reverts year to year. Is it still the $2,500? Just year to year? Or does that go back to that?
It's a 2-year contract, so I would assume in the 3rd year, they would give new costs, and it would have to be approved for whatever that cost is.
It says total ongoing 2,500, right?
In the notes, it says this is a 2-year contract.
But then when I see the 35 crossed out, it makes me think, well, does that mean?
That's because they waived the $1,000 implementation setup fee.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? So it was $3,500, $2,500 for the actual package, and then the setup fee, and they've waived that.
Gotcha.
Well, we had to set up some type of guidelines on responding, like if a resident texts in a concern, that we'll respond within a certain time frame.
Do we want two-way communication, or do you want just one-way?
Just sending out stuff and not bringing it in.
I
I don't know if that becomes a problem. I guess we could address that when it becomes a problem if we adopt the system.
If you want to tell the office staff how they're to do their job, then you can say you have to answer within 4 hours. I don't know what the scenario is on that. What if it comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning?
If we put this into place and we're going to spend the money for people to text in concerns,
Right.
and someone's concern sits there for a week, you know.
Well,
or,
one,
hey,
it
when-
wouldn't sit there for a week because
Well,
our
I'm
staff
just-
doesn't operate that way.
I'm using
right?
an example, right?
Right.
So if it just sat there, we would have to set some type of guidelines or parameters, because people would be like, man, I sent this text, I haven't got a response. You know, most people look for a text response within minutes, right? So we'd have to make that very clear to the residents also that, you know, you're not gonna get a response after 4:30 or whatever that might be, and not on weekends or.
Well, you don't know that because if it goes to GFL might respond immediately. There may be an auto reply message. Your text has been received, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Just trying to simplify, I guess. I don't know. I think it's just more moving parts that, I don't know if it's gonna help when we just pick up a phone and call, you know, the office, and it's gonna get routed to that person anyways that's gonna handle it.
No, because they don't call Mike direct from GFL, again, on a trash issue. They don't have his cell phone number. They contact Cindy, or they leave a message. Cindy gets it. Cindy sends the text message to GFL. It could eliminate that whole
Also,
leg.
in the trash pickup situation, I can see. Yeah.
So, you know, again, I just think it's an opportunity to allow our residents to contact us for another method that may work for them. It's not going to work for everybody. Not everybody is going to sign up or want to receive text messages. I think I've blocked the governor's text messages, emergency notifications coming to my personal cell phone for just that reason. But there are people who would appreciate this, just like people who probably would have appreciated a newsletter going out on our tax bills, which we didn't take an opportunity to do that
I'd make
this
a
year.
motion to accept the 2-year contract for the TextMyGov.
I
Try it out
second.
for a couple years and see how
it works.
How it works.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion by Poznanski. We have support by Parker.
Did you want to add anything, Chief?
This is Rick Russell's proposal.
This is text-my-gov.
Now, if we need to purchase additional messages, will that just be done, or will that be something that comes to the floor to ask?
I would assume that if it's under or over my spending threshold, then yeah, it would come to you for an update on the package plan.
Or just include it in your motion if you want it to come for approval.
It's for 25,000 text messages a year.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
All right.
I think we're good, and even if we need an extra 25 at the most is 300, which I believe is within.
Okay. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
So this
okay,
one
sorry.
will also tie in with the police?
The only reason that I would ever use it would be a mass notification type thing. I would, because you're going to limit yourself, is just my suggestion.
Wouldn't you tell them, like, if 53 closed down because there was a major accident, you'd tell people to avoid
Yeah, have my
53 and
dispatcher send out a mass
32 mile?
notification
Or
to
Peach
whoever
Fest parades are
subscribes.
happening.
lights,
these
traffic
roads
lights
are
are-
shut
Yeah,
down.
I would not, you're limiting yourself on the amount of text that you can put out and receive. You're talking 25,000. I know that sounds like a lot, but
It's not.
I think there's kids that do that in like 2 weeks.
Sure.
My suggestion would be that on trash day, every trash day, you send out a notification that says, if you have a problem with your trash, call this number at GFL or whatever.
Oh, to
Try to
eliminate the
discourage them
text.
from calling.
That's a good
And that
idea.
way they go themselves.
It's a good idea.
Because what this is going to be, basically, you're going to get a text like the governor. You know, and if you opt in, that's what you're going to get. You know, if I got a freeway shut down at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I sent out a mass text, some people aren't going to be happy, but they opted in. I'm not going to be happy.
Hopefully they have their do not disturb on at 2 AM.
So you won't be taking, we'll say, emergency text.
I encourage anybody who wants to report an emergency or has an emergency, dial 911. I don't want to have them looking for a text or going through an app or something like that. That's long in the future. They're trying to do that right now with Next Gen 911, where they want to do video calls and that. And I think that's silly. You know, it's technology. Everybody wants to do a video call and that stuff. Pick up the phone, down 911.
So we would have that incoming emergency sort of message routed with the reply that says call 911.
Yeah, if this is
So that would work good for, like, there's times when I'll see the sheriff's department and Romeo, like, flying around town. They're obviously looking for someone or something, and sometimes I want to say, what are you looking for?
Everybody's going to go, what's this car flying down the street? What's going on over at the corner at 32 Mile and the bypass? What's happening over there? It's, that's when you're starting to get, and your 25,000 is going to hit real quick.
Yeah.
But I didn't mean, I don't like to call and ask, you know what I'm saying? Because if there's a little kid I should be looking out for, I'd like to help out.
If there's something major, we'll put it out.
You'll put it out? Okay, that's all I was wondering.
Yeah, that
But
goes
you're
out
also
to
going to have the people that want
Similar,
everything.
yeah. So it'd be like a local Amber Alert. Okay.
So are we good with the motion? Are we still good with your motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Call the roll, please, Catherine.
Poznanski?
Yes?
Parker?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Fowler?
No.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
President Malzahn?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1.
All right, next up on the agenda, we have the Parks and Rec proposed bylaws. As Trustee Poznanski stated, she was at the meeting. I was not, I wanted to be clear, I was not invited to the meeting, nor was I provided a copy of the bylaws prior to the meeting. I did watch the meeting. I watched the meeting several times.
And you were invited, that's why I didn't say anything to you, because they said that they did, and I said, okay, well then I'll leave it alone. I thought you were invited.
They did not.
They lied. I got invited. I was out of town though. I
There
couldn't
was
be
even a
here.
reply that you
Same thing.
said you would try your best.
I shouldn't say that, then I should clarify.
Okay.
Sam Praviti texted me the day before
Yes,
at 1
and
o'clock and said, there is a Parks and Rec meeting, it would be great if you could come.
Yes, and I got mine at 7 p.m.
He didn't say what it was for, I didn't have a copy of the bylaws, right, he did.
Okay.
And I said I would try my
Well,
best.
that's why I said, do
Yeah.
you want me to tell anybody else? He said he reached out to X, Y, and Z, and I said, okay, then I'll leave it alone.
But that's not right, that's not the same as a formal invite. Hey,
I didn't
the
get
entire
formal.
board of Washington Township and the entire board of Bruce Township are gathering to discuss the bylaws with an attorney, and maybe Romeo should have a seat at the table.
Yeah,
So-
no, I got the same message, text message.
Okay. And Megan obviously was there, and I appreciated the comments that you had at the end, because I had the same reaction. The first topic was, let's remove the word Romeo from the name. And I thought, well, that's a slap in the face, to use your phrase, and an insult right there. Whose idea was that?
Well, they were literally sitting in
Yes.
Romeo.
So I had a subsequent follow-up conversation after I calmed down, talking to Mark, who talked me off the ledge, and called Sam Praviti and called Mike Philbrook, and I said, this is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Why was Romeo not invited to attend this discussion? We are the holder of the facility. This is our campus, right?
And that was not mentioned, that was something that I forgot, I wrote a bunch of stuff down, I forgot to
something
mention
about
that.
lease agreements and
That when they do talk about the potential to dissolution, or what's the word? Dissolve,
disband, right.
that it doesn't talk about taking care of that contract. It just says how they'll split the money. And that was something that I think needs to be addressed somehow, because they have to fulfill that contract with us.
Right,
If
and-
it's before our time, if it's before it's up.
Right, which is, I think we have like another 60 or 70 years.
I think it was, right, 99-year lease, I think in the 90s, I want to say.
And Mark is saying that the lease is, enforceable, and that Bruce and Bruce and Washington Township would have to, fulfill the care and maintenance and upkeep, of this facility for the length of that. But that's not even the important factor in my book. The Parks and Rec Commission didn't start out excluding Romeo, right? There was this big board of people, and everybody was getting along, and we were doing great things, and then it became cumbersome to have all these people come to the meetings, and it was decided that, you know what, we can just have the tax collecting authorities represent this commission, and then for years, that's the way it went. But Romeo's skin in the game, even though we're not the tax collecting authority, this is our property, right? This belongs to the residents, right? They do pay for two things, the tax and, right, we could be earning money off of this facility. We get $1 a year for a lease that was negotiated in good faith with the best of intentions as a partnership to this tri-community agreement.
When did you receive this highlighted one? Because what I got at the meeting is different from this highlighted one.
I downloaded this. I never received it. I downloaded this from Washington Township's website.
Because another point of contention along the lines of your speaking is, there is a line, not in the one that you have, but in the one I received at the meeting, that says, "The commission shall also disband if Romeo shall become a city." Now, they did talk about this and decided that they didn't need to disband based on that, but that they would need to essentially regroup. But that line right there tells me that we're not mentioned anywhere else until here. So we are, even just mentioning that should we leave and take our money with us, we are paying for this, and we should be represented.
Yes. So the supervisors both reiterated to me on the phone that they apologized that Romeo wasn't involved, wasn't invited. They had no issue with us being involved. They understood the need for that. I don't know that their board support that, but that's the word that I got from them. And I also spoke to Clara, who said the same exact thing. By all means. She told me that the next meeting is scheduled for August 16th at 2:30 in the afternoon.
I know.
At the Grosvenor Library,
Yes,
because the Washington Township Board wasn't comfortable having it all in Romeo. They wanted it in the library so that their residents had an opportunity to attend, I believe is what was said, although their residents certainly are welcome to attend here.
Well, we are their residents.
Right.
Yeah, as your resident, you live on that side of town, right?
So,
Well, I'll be at it's a public meeting, right?
Yes.
right. Well, what I said to them is I'm not inviting my board to come to a meeting and sit in the public audience to be given 3 minutes at the tail end after your discussion for public comment. If we're invited, then we're coming and we want appropriate seating and to be involved in the discussion at every turn. So I believe that's what we need to do. So whether
I don't think either township wants to give up a number of seats right on the board.
Well, the way they speak about it, though, when they speak about their seats for the board, they talk about it being not political and not biased. So it shouldn't matter how many each one has if the people they appoint are supposed to be non-biased.
Right.
By arguing, they are contradicting
Washington puts in
themselves.
more than Bruce, and this and then Bruce. Washington had more seats.
Well, Washington said, well, they could appoint, if they have 5 people, ultimately, all 5 could be dual residents from Romeo and from Washington.
Well, one, like the DDA has criteria for those board members. They, so many business owners, so many residents, and that type of thing. They could have part of their board be like Washington's board of whoever they're appointing, have to be a Romeo resident, still a Washington Romeo, and then a Bruce one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a way that they can include us in the board.
Which is true.
They stated that, but they didn't, it's not
written in there.
It's not as a Romeo resident.
It said it's an option, it's not written as a
Right,
must.
it's just like, hey, if it happens, it happens. But the DDA purposes that there are so many business owners. There are those, that's part of the criteria. You can't appoint, we have to appoint somebody from Romeo because this person has vacated a Romeo spot. I mean, that's...
Well, I have a question. If this is what they've drawn up, it seems like they were already under some sort of an agreement or contract with them. And so if this is what they want to move forward with, are they breaching a current contract that they have right now between the 3 of us? By just moving forward and leaving us out?
Yeah, I believe that they plan to reconvene on August 16th with those two boards to vote and to continue the dialogue to come to some consensus on what the new bylaws should agree on. And if Romeo doesn't, I believe, voice some sort of an objection, if we don't stand firm in saying,
Okay.
we're fighting for our residents. And the other point that I want to make that Mark made to me, and I included it in my conversations with both Mike and Sam, was, look, you have reached out to Romeo multiple times and asked us to be good neighbors. Bruce, you're asking us for sewer capacity. You want to utilize our infrastructure. Washington Township, you're asking us to support your efforts to get an interconnection from Great Lakes Water so that you can assure that your residents are serviced by water. Why on earth would we entertain either one of those if you want to purposely exclude Romeo from Parks and Rec?
Thank you.
Where's the motivation for us to do that?
Well, and when they started their meeting, all of the board members did speak, and they did talk about wanting to improve this tri-community relationship and that we are a tri-community. So when I stood up to speak at the end, I reminded them of those comments and that that actions speak louder than words, and that they should follow through on those first comments with their actions in this, when they're redoing the commission.
Yeah, try is 3. I'll read 2.
I literally held up, there was a sign, Romeo, Washington, Bruce, and at the end, all of the letters say 1. Said, is this who we are? You all said this, then let's act like this.
It should not be, and I've said this before when I went to the Washington Township Board and asked Dan to exclude us from the total sports soccer millage request about the money, right? When Clara reached out to me and said, we need a truck filled for our Morton Mountain super slide, right? I didn't say, well, yeah, you can fill it, but only use it for Romeo residents. Please make sure that, that only this portion of the water that's coming from Romeo should be for your event. No, they had a need. Romeo stepped up, said, yeah, fill the tanker so that the kids can have fun over on Morton Mountain, wherever they come from.
Right.
Right?
Well, I'm sure there's
it's just
tons
a
more.
mindset, and honestly, I think the residents need to step up here, right?
There were many residents. I don't know if you could see the audience from the video, but we had many Romeo residents there also that I sat with that were also, I even had just a plain Bruce Township resident say to me, wow, what do you think of that? And I always said that it hurts, like, ouch. And he said, I think I would say the same thing if I was in your spot.
So when is it?
So the meeting is August 16th, 2:30 at Grosvenor Library. That's what Clara confirmed to me today.
Is that a Wednesday?
So I'm urging anybody watching, anybody who has a comment or concern, to show up at that meeting, and as many of you that are available to come to that meeting, to make sure that we have, a contingent there that says we're not willing to roll over, and we're not okay with this.
Well, and I just want everyone to know, if we are sounding frustrated or upset, it is out of hurt, that we are not angry, and that we want to have and improve a tri-community relationship here. So this isn't us being upset, this is us being hurt.
Agreed.
All right, so I don't think we need to take any action. Just wanted to throw it out there and give the information.
You had the parade approval.
Yes, so you had at your place, I touched on all 3 of these events in my president's report about the 3 parades. The Chamber of Commerce Children's Parade, September 5th at 11 o'clock. The Lions Classic Car Parade, Sunday the 5th at 7 o'clock. And then the Homecoming Parade, October 13th at 6 o'clock. Chief Dan has to submit a motion approval by this board to the Road Commission for the street closures, which is why you have this in front of you to approve just for the parades.
So it's like a special.
It's not a special event, but yes, it's a resolution that we're going to.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Who made it?
You made it?
I made a motion to.
I thought you said I needed to make a motion. Okay.
Well, Bob told me to make a motion, yes, to approve these 3 parades.
Second, you made the motion, second by Fowler?
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Grades done. All right, now we have left 2 closed sessions.
Motion to move into closed session?
The first would be for the purpose of union labor negotiations.
Who said support, Poznanski?
It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Go ahead, we're out.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
President Mills, when you're ready for roll call
You want
vote.
a roll call? Okay.
Yes, please. Bartholomew?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
President Mills?
Yes.
Okay, at 9:37 PM. Hold on a second. Nope.
We're back out of our closed session. I thank you for your patience. Zach, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
Finally?
What time is that? What time is that?
At 10:23.
Are we going to be getting?
Wait.
Oh, wait.
Nope, we're not
Sorry.
done.
I'm anxious to get out of here. Excuse me.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'll make a motion that we will move forward and purchase the property next to the post office for $100,000, paid for out of our general fund.
Second.
Roll call on that, please.
I'm sorry, who is the support?
Parker.
Thank you. I'm coming. Okay, roll call vote. Hart?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Who am I missing?
Me.
Yep, Mills on.
Yes.
Motion carries, sorry.
Now, Zach.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 10:24.
10:24. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned. Good night, everybody.